Hello, this is the first week of our new show, sort of rebranded, same show, different name. We are now the Real Triad Review, and,
A
review meaning we'll review a lot of different things. And I'm, of course, Mr. Snippets, and to my left is, of course, the wonderful Black Girl Marvel, and Marvelite 20 on the far left over there. Hello all. Hello Matt, how you doing, sir? Good to see you on the other side of the camera. So I just hear you instead of this way. So hello and all. How are you two doing tonight?
peachy.
Doing great.
What's up with the quality? That's a good question. Is it the audio? I'm willing to bet it's the audio.
Probably.
It's
It could
my
be the
mic.
audio.
Of course it's my mic.
Oh. Just for one day, it wasn't me. I'm so sorry.
Hold on.
It's usually
You know,
me.
you don't have a voice mod on, do you?
No, I don't. I don't do voice mods.
You hear it?
Can you hear me?
Yeah. My wife is watching and she can hear it too.
Your wife, she's awesome.
And thank you for watching, even though I sound like a robot. Well, that's awesome.
Do I sound weird?
My name is Mr. Snippets, and I am reviewing movie Okay, so this isn't gonna get better, unless I remove my microphone source. How about you guys talk and I'll work on my microphone?
Okay. So this week we are discussing what is it, Iron Man 1, 2, and the Avengers. This is the start of our Tony Stark week, where we will be talking about, I'm assuming, the qualities of Tony Stark from these next 3 weeks. We're going to be doing this to see, has he indeed changed as a character / a man? Which yes.
And we're gonna present our opinion, and we're gonna show you why Mr. Snippets is wrong.
Exactly. He's wrong. Yeah.
I like how you guys are saying that when I'm not supposed to be talking.
Yeah, you know what? Maybe God has just messed up your microphone, so you can't talk for this one.
Exactly. This is not your episode, man. No.
Do I still sound robotic according to Tony's wife, to my wife's wife?
Does he still sound robotic? Go ahead and talk again. Let's see.
Yeah, let's see.
The silent laughing she's going through right now means yes.
That's funny.
It's like I just heard a little bit of it. It's like
I had to change my microphone in Discord when you guys said it was something wrong with me.
I'm gonna have to kill the source, because if it's still doing it, okay.
We don't believe in murder around here.
So not the misadventure, just that's the source.
Yeah. I mean, if it's the source of all evil, we talking like Charmed, then yeah. But
well, if only we did something beforehand to make sure all of this worked appropriately, which we did do, and on our end, in our Discord chat, we can hear him perfectly fine.
Yeah.
So Twitch is just having problems with him.
Yeah.
He's just looking there with the look on his face. I'm looking at the chat screen, the stream.
Yeah.
That's my focused look. Okay, now I'm blowing out the speakers.
It looks like you're about to be hit by a car. I'm just gonna be honest.
Now I'm in mono, so that's awesome. Hold on.
He's not gonna move. He's just gonna get hit. Just
wait.
Watching.
Did you say you just have mono?
No, I'm in mono.
Oh, in mono.
I was gonna say, what year is this? You got mono?
Salty dog.
I was
still
pretty.
Digital, or am I less digital, more mono?
His analog is having a problem.
This is so
So he
dumb.
says it sounds like an Atari trying to communicate with us.
Oh,
Bad.
man. Oh,
Thank you so much for
man.
subscribing, dude.
Look at that. Even with the technical
Dylon!
issues, what a nice guy. And Dylon! The auto-tune is cool, so it's really still happening.
Yeah, at least when you hear the wrong answers he's gonna give to his review, it'll sound like something like Kanye West said.
Great.
Exactly. Which just doubles down on the wrong. Makes sense.
So, okay. Do I still sound visible?
Does it still sound bad? I'm getting shakes of yes.
Son of a monkey.
Can you understand him?
Okay.
Huh? Okay, so you know, like there's like a scene in Iron Man where it's like that robot voice saying I am Iron Man, like that 8-bit version of it.
Yeah.
That's kind of how you sound from when I'm hearing it from my wife's stream.
You're gonna send me a TikTok of my video quality. Well, that's awesome. I don't understand why it's happening. I have literally changed nothing.
Love that
We should just change the title of this to Snidbit Struggles,
yeah.
because this is more entertaining to me, I think, in some cases.
Thanks. I
You're
appreciate
welcome.
that.
No, but here's an honest thing. I am glad that I'm not the only person that has technology issues, and so if you, who have been doing this longer than I have, is having technology issues, I feel a little bit more comfortable about the stuff that I do. Now, mind you, you've not not that I know of, have you gone on a 30-minute monologue with your mic muted like I have? So
No, you did, really.
I did.
That's
Oh, nice.
cool.
That also.
I always want to say 2005. I don't know why. I always want to say, yeah, Iron Man came out 2005. Maybe it's because it's the year I graduated, but I'm not sure.
My entire.
I think you just deleted us.
No, hold on.
Yeah, we're gone off the screen.
No, you're back.
Oh, there we are.
It's
Oh,
working. Yeah. It's working, but I'm still in mono.
So just to kind of give you an idea, this is the start of the MCU, and not only that, this movie actually competed with The Dark Knight. And so this was, that may be where you're getting it from, because Batman Begins came out in 2005. And then Dark Knight was out in 2008, the same time that Iron Man was. And really, we didn't see the turn on comic book movies until Batman Begins and Dark Knight. People really like Spider-Man 2, but it still had that campy type feel to it. And when after Dark Knight, and I guess people realized that they could, or Batman Begins, that they could do something different with it. I really think Marvel kind of went in that direction. And I think and this is just my opinion, if Warner Brothers would have allowed Nolan to make a bigger world, and if Nolan was willing to have done it, they could have had a DC universe that would have rivaled MCU through Nolan's vision, like the Nolanverse. Just an idea there.
I agree with that. This movie was kind of a shot in the dark in a way, because it was also the unknown heroes, not unknown to comic book fans, but the wider audience. You may have heard of Iron Man or Hulk, but they were like, okay, yeah, we had that Ang Lee thing, and nobody wants that again. And Iron Man, you mean the really alcohol driven weirdo from the Vietnam War era? Like, that's not really what people think is like everybody's hero. Laying some groundwork here.
Just one thing, Nate. Okay, I hope this doesn't mess up everything, but you sound way more louder than us. Like, you sound way more loud.
Way more loud.
Yeah, way more loud. I like the way I said it.
Is that better?
Yeah.
I changed a little bit, and I'll bring you guys up a little bit.
Hey, Psychopunk.
Yeah.
Captain Salty.
Gotta love those technical issues.
Oh yeah.
You like
Oh,
noodles?
he likes white.
I like noodles. Who
I
doesn't
feel like
like?
he's out there from Community. Like he likes butter noodles.
But I will say this. I appreciate that we're doing this because I actually was just doing bits and pieces of going back and watching the movies. And while I was sitting here waiting for us to get on to start the stream, I was looking some stuff up online. I actually found out that one of the Easter egg videos I did about Iron Man 2, where you see the Captain America shield when Coulson gives it to Tony to level out his that basically his laser. That's not the first time that shield appeared in an Iron Man film. And I actually went back in Iron Man 1 and found it on one of the workstations, and I just did a
Yeah.
TikTok about it.
Very cool.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
So something I realized, because I'm not just watching these 3 films, for whatever reason, my brain was like, but don't forget about Captain America, First Avenger, and Thor. Don't forget about those. Don't forget about Incredible Hulk. So I had to keep watching those as well. And so when I did watch Captain America, First Avenger, I realized that Tony Stark's repulsor lift, or like weapon repulsor, if you will, is the exact same sound as the Hydra weapons, which I thought was a great Tesseract. So it's the sound the Tesseract makes when it puts off power, essentially. So I thought that was kind of cool. Let's see. So I've shouted out a few people here. I've been wanting to shout everyone out because they're awesome. Welcome, Joker. Welcome, everybody. Now that I'm back, I can actually talk to everybody in chat. I've been having some more technical difficulties. I love it. But anyway, we got Joker, we got Alt, we got Matt, we got Dylon, we got Psycho, we got Captain Salty Dog, all up in the chat saying hello. You guys are all awesome for being here. Matt, thank you very much for that subscription. And I know I'm in mono, but we're going to roll with it.
Yeah.
So
let's go. So
this all started from a TikTok I did where I thrashed on Tony Stark. I should have put the TikTok up for me to put on here. I should have done that.
Just go follow him on
TikTok. Oh, let's hear the exciting news first. I like that. That sounds like fun. I could use good news.
Can't we all?
You got to deal with Nike. That would be good news.
I'll be your assistant if you need somebody to come here. Hey, nice, man.
Awesome.
Congratulations, sir. That's awesome. And you've got quite the crew. If you guys haven't watched Joker's show, he does anime reviews and kind of talking about anime. And then, of course, he does community shout outs, which is really, really fun. I've, of course, been on his show, which was a blast. And you guys, of course, should go on his show sometime. If that's up to him. But he did mention wanting to steal you guys at one point. But he is now, of course, as you guys saw, he's doing his own podcast on Spotify, which is awesome. And maybe we'll get there one day. I think that'll be cool. And so, yeah, thank you all for the support. But let's get into the thick of this because that's why we're here. I made a... Wow. Where did it come from? I heard it. I don't see where it... Where was it? It went right across the screen.
Where was what?
You got the vaccine on Friday? That's awesome. No, something came across. Either somebody followed or subscribed, but it's not showing it in chat. That's really weird. I want to say thank you to whatever that was. Anyway, we're here to talk about Tony Stark as a character, and we're going to talk about him. You're hosting. Thank you, Captain Salty Dog. I really, really appreciate that. That's very, very cool. We're going to talk about Tony Stark and whether or not through the 9 films that you see him in the MCU, he is or is not a hero. And of course, everybody's going to have their opinion, and they're going to have their opinions now, of course. But I think as we talk through this over the next 3 weeks, maybe we'll sway people one way or the other. I think this should be fun. Starting with the first 3 films, I don't think anybody's going to disagree that Tony is not the hero type. Like, he even says it himself. It's not his shtick. He's a weapon salesman. He's not the kind of guy that's going to go out and lay on the wire, as they say in Avengers. And the whole point of that, well, thank you for the host. the whole point of that is to show that he can grow and change in an arc, right? That's the whole point of phase 1. So right now we will probably spend a lot of time agreeing that he's not the hero type until we get to Avengers, where he does his that's awesome. I'll definitely save your points, man, and pick a movie and we will review it. That is what we do. So once we get to Avengers, I think we can start talking about whether or not he's a hero in phase 1. But overall, this is going to be whether or not he's a hero in the long term. And it's going to be interesting because we're still going to just need to review the films as we go, because we'll have to pick and choose what we talk about. And the big argument, I don't think will happen till week 3, honestly. I mean, we might pluck back and forth here at the beginning, but I don't know. What do you guys think?
Yeah, I can't wait for those. I can't wait for the intensity to happen. It's going to be great.
My wife and I debate about this all the time because she's constantly on your guys' side and telling me how wrong I am. And
good woman, that's why.
And tonight I almost got her like walk out of the room mad at me over Tony Stark. And it's hilarious because you can tell who she's a fan of, because I was like, oh, how many times have you seen Doctor Strange? She's like, oh, I've seen it once. You know, how many times have you seen, The Incredible Hulk? Oh, I think you made me watch it a second time or something like that. How many times have you seen Endgame? I don't remember how many. Like, you can tell, same with Iron Man 2. She's seen way too many times. Like, she won't watch them with me anymore. That's how many times she's watched them, because she'll fall asleep. So she's biased is what I'm trying to say.
No, she's not. She knows what she's like. How dare.
Well, Iron Man 1 being the first film in the MCU. I mean, I think everybody's watched that a lot. I mean, it's mainstream, even like on like TBS and TNT and all those other places, like, or FX, like it shows up all the time, and so everyone has a big like saturation of it.
True.
Agreed. It's hard not to go back and kind of go, wow, I've seen this a lot of times. And it feels
but it's a movie that you can go back and watch a lot of times and still enjoy it. Right? It has beats and moments that you can't wait to see happen. You know what I mean? Like, so I feel like it's a rewatchable movie, and a lot of movies aren't really rewatchable. You see it that first time, you're like, all right, that was nice. But I feel like Iron Man, you can watch it, and then like 6 months later, you're like, let me watch that again.
That's true. And it's a good background movie, because if you look up and you see Jensen and him talking in the cave, you're like, oh yeah, this is a great part, So I know what you mean. Yeah. And Jeff Bridges. Oh, Jeff Bridges as a bad guy. He's great.
I think everybody.
That was fantastic.
Yeah.
I feel like this was like a movie for people to realize that Robert Downey Jr. is still a phenomenal actor, despite his growing up in his background. And then it was to remind people that Jeff Bridges is actually a very good actor as well. I think people forgot. He kind of sat down for a little bit.
Well, for Jeff Bridges, what was really interesting is if you look at a lot of the characters that he's played, even after Iron Man, there's always like this slur, and like he's an older, like, he's kind of the dude, of course.
Yeah.
But for when he played Obadiah Stane, he was very articulate and clean cut, and it was a stark, no pun intended, stark difference to other stuff that he's played, which is what I love about the MCU, is they don't play on the normal tropes, like especially like we're not talking about it right now, but like Ben Kingsley in Iron Man 3, like that's out of the norm for him. So
yeah, but I think he had fun with that too. I think sometimes for a serious actor to come in and just play, right, just get a chance to play, I think that was like butter for him. He was like, oh, I can just come in and get paid to have fun. I don't have to like research and be all super stoic and figure out what this is. I can just come in and be a slob that drinks and hang out with women and speak falsely at first, and then in a British accent, get my British accent on. Like, it was so great to see him like strip down like that. So yeah.
And he's fantastic, of course. So that is always fun to watch him flex.
Yeah.
So the idea that I heard that I thought was interesting is that the MCU has a problem with cloning villains, so they're just clones of their good guy. And Iron Man, of course, has this exact problem because the Iron Juggernaut, or the Iron, what do they call him? What is it again?
Ironmonger.
Monger. That's what it is. TMI. I agree. Ironmonger is just a giant Iron Man, and he's gray, and he's got bigger feet, and he's got a few extra missiles, and he's almost like a tank version of War Machine. So it's interesting, and there's nothing wrong with that with the first one, but then in the second movie we get a copycat of him again. The dude literally makes his own Iron Man suit at the end of the film. Again, we don't get anything.
Your audio just did.
Wow. Okay, so
No,
apparently
I think he got shocked by the chat.
we're getting way too much information about toenails in our chat, so we're gonna move on.
Yeah, and unfortunately, that second one was my mod from my stream. Thanks a lot.
Go, Matt. Go. It's just interesting because when we do finally get a bad guy in Avengers, it is finally a bad guy that's different than the good guys, other than the fact that it's still Thor's copycat bad guy, which is another god. Same thing with even Captain America. It's just another super soldier gone wrong with Red Skull. It's copycat villains like all the way through. It's pretty interesting. But anyway.
I mean, I think if you think about it, when the stuff was created, it was probably easier when you have your main character to just have your opposite be similar in a way. It probably cut down on like the thought process and the writing, and it was probably easier to go that route because you have like that yin and that yang, that push and that pull. It's like you have like that light and that dark, and usually a little bit of that dark is in you as well. So like, why not just pull that out and play with that and see where that goes?
Yeah. But if you even think about it later on in the MCU during Civil War, Vision makes a very astute statement that is almost exactly what we're talking about here. He says basically, ever since the creation of the Avengers or the creation of like Iron Man and everyone else, there has been basically a response by the villains, by the bad guys basically. And so it's like a causation that happens because for Thor's existence coming out, there are villains that come out after Thor. For Iron Man, making a suit, there's a bunch of people that want to make suits as well. I mean, that's literally Iron Man 1 and 2. For all of them. I mean, for Hulk, there's an Abomination. I mean, it just
again, but even
exactly.
Hulk is worse because Hulk is just in the MCU. It's just the super soldier serum gone wrong, and so is Abomination with a couple added, nutrients, if you will.
But
your audio cut out really bad there, Lala.
So did yours.
I don't think it went wrong though. I think Abomination went wrong. You can look at him and tell it went wrong. I mean, I get it. Like, essentially, it did go wrong because that wasn't what they wanted to happen. Like, I understand that. But I still feel like it didn't go wrong, if you understand what I'm saying. Because even though it's the Hulk and the Hulk looks like what he looks like, he's still a better form than Abomination. Abomination just looks wrong, like, aesthetically. I mean, hence his name. But I don't know. I feel like kind of like, okay, we talk about it like we're not at Avengers yet, but essentially it's what Tony said to him. He was like, that much radiation should have killed you. Like, you should have died.
Right. No, he does say that. Right, but you didn't. So his genetics were on point. And,
right. So
we just got trolled by your moderator.
I know. I'm about to respond to him.
It's all good. Matt's having fun.
Yeah.
Oh my word! I love that. Oh my word! No, we're Matt is the kind of person that needs a moviecation badly. Like really badly.
But it makes sense. I mean, for Twitch, he's a gamer and he likes gaming, and he's only watched Star Wars because his dad likes Star Wars. So, he's getting an education from me a little bit. We're gonna do some movies, but the fact that he's even here listening to us talk about something he knows nothing about, that's a testament to him just being an awesome guy. So
appreciate you, Matt. Well, Psycho, listen, I think Edward Norton was going to continue as the Hulk, but he had too many demands from Marvel, and they were like, "You have a good day." Yeah. So they were like, "You have a good day." So it would have been nice. I wouldn't have minded seeing Edward Norton continue into the MCU. Like, I really wouldn't, because if he would have, maybe Universal would have came along with him, and it would have been like a nice little deal, kind of like a la Spider-Man, and we would have gotten the Hulk that we needed to see. That would have been nice to see. we still got a version of the Hulk, which is I feel like it's okay for what they gave us. But if they would have had full rights to him, I think it would have played out a little differently. I feel like we would have got that Thanos versus Hulk that we really wanted to see.
Are you trying to make me cry? Are you trying to make me cry right now?
I'm sorry.
I mean, I know
Also,
we're going to
don't
thrash
forget-
on a character everybody loves, but when we get into Hulk and the fact that he has gotten the biggest shaft, right about the same shaft that this is going to sound terrible as Black Widow, and that was not a pun. He's got one movie which was really a monster movie, and I'm tired of that with Hulk because we know he's not a monster, he's a hero, and so like I would have liked to have seen that Incredible Hulk movie be about a hero Hulk rather than a monster Hulk, because we don't see hero Hulk until the end of Avengers. So that's frustrating.
Oh yes.
Oh, Hulk
it's his favorite.
Oh yeah, dude. Oh,
yeah.
Come
We'll
watch
get
me and
into it.
Tony
We'll
on
get-
TikTok sometime, and I'll show you my comics. That's where that's at. I'm not gonna do it here.
Yeah, we did a live last night. It was a lot of fun.
Yeah. And I have a ton of Hulk comics. I have almost an entire long box just of Hulk, which is a lot of comic books. It's I can't even
Okay,
stretch
so
my
Iron
arms
Man
out.
1.
So Iron Man.
Iron Man 1. Are we reviewing like each? We're giving a little review, or what we doing?
We all know these movies really, really well, so we could take our standard approach and kind of just do it the way we would normally and say, hey, what do you think about this movie? What do you think the high points, the low points, and our rating? I think that's the way we should do it, and then see if we can extrapolate anything for the argument from this film. How's that sound?
Show us the way. Go
Okay.
ahead.
When I saw this movie in 2008 in the theater, I knew that The Incredible Hulk was tied to it and that they were trying this because I was tapped in a little bit enough to know that they were at least attempting it because of the purchase of Disney. So I went in with some pretty high expectations. And when I got out of the film, I was not at all disappointed, even with really high expectations. And I don't like origin stories as a rule. I think they're fairly dull as stories go. I'd rather get to the chapter 2 where I can see the characters fully fleshed out and moving. But this is probably one of the best written and produced origin stories without the MCU attached to it, just as a movie. That's my first take on it. Tony?
Oh, okay. Are you done? Or
No,
Oh,
that was just my overall the way I think of the film. When I think of it, it just shines as this beacon of what I expect from an origin film. Without going into the film too much, that's just my 1 minute take.
Yeah. Okay, so you called my name, so I guess I'll go ahead and so it was funny because I've always been a big Marvel fan, and I felt like Marvel films up to this point were just blah. I liked Blade. But I just felt like it was never going to become anything bigger than it was. I really tried to like the Punisher and stuff like that. And I feel like when Marvel approached this, I think they had to make it an origin story because this wasn't just an origin story for Tony, but it was like the origin of the MCU. This was, I mean, they were introducing us into a world that a lot of people didn't know. And we talk about, Iron Man was one of the lesser known, mainstream heroes in the sense of the casual comic book reader is going to know who he is, but people that are fans, they'll know Hulk before they know Iron Man. But of course, Sony got the better end of the deal when they bought Spider-Man because that's a cash cow. It doesn't matter. Everyone loved Spider-Man, and so it wasn't just a way to introduce Tony, but this was the idea of bringing up the idea of getting figuring out who Pepper Potts is, meeting Rhodey for the idea of becoming War Machine. Nick Fury is presented at the end. You've got Phil Coulson, who is the representative of Shield up to this point, and the fact that they did all of those small things to lead up to this this movie, it made a lot of sense. And it also had to get us to start because, like Snidbits has this opinion of Tony Stark, Tony Stark is not immediately a likable character other than he's kind of like that fun jerk to be around. And so yeah, exactly. He's a frat boy, he's the party guy. He doesn't really think of the consequences of his actions. And we're going to find that through, the series of Iron Man films, Tony is making amends for the results of his actions up to the point of where he decided to do something better with himself. And I think it resonates with a lot of people, even though you can't be a genius billionaire playboy philanthropist. You can be a person who makes lots of mistakes and has to come back from it. I think the parallels between Robert Downey Jr. himself and Iron Man are very clear. And I think they did that a little bit on purpose because this was a redemption movie for him as well.
Agreed.
And I think when we talk about Iron Man as a whole, you have to understand all of the roots behind it, because he's not going to make the super selfless, you know, hero move until later on in the history of the MCU, which we're not going to talk about tonight. So,
well, he does one that we're going to talk about tonight.
He does, yes, he does do one,
yeah.
And that one is very important because I think it's the realization that he's willing to do it, and I don't think it was out of character for him to do it in, let's say, another movie down the road. But he's a person who's trying to change his behavior, try to change his reactions while still being who he is, and he's got a lot of growing up to do. But yeah, so from there.
Lala.
I knew more of the Hulk than I did Iron Man when this all started, because I didn't really know Iron Man. I'm not like, I know a little bit from the comics, but I don't know a lot from the comics. I'm more of a movie person. I'm more of a visual type of person. So when this movie was announced, I knew a little bit of Iron Man, so I was excited. Didn't know that they were going to create a whole universe with this. Didn't know what was in their brains. But my first thought initially, okay, so I'm like the opposite of Snitty a little bit. I like origin stories. I like to see where a person starts and then where they end up, because I like a good character arc. Sometimes for me, a trash movie can be saved by like a good character arc, and that's just like my personal preference. So to see pretty much Robert Downey Jr. be himself on screen and put a suit on, not to like diminish his work, but him and Iron Man are very similar in the fact that they both were alcoholics, even though Robert Downey Jr. did a little more than alcohol, and them trying to build back their reputation in not just the public's eyes, but like in their friends and family's eyes and things like that. So like their lives are very similar. So I don't think it was very hard for Robert Downey Jr. to come into this role. I think maybe some of the other, like getting his body into shape and things like that, like the physicality is what made it hard for him possibly. But I think that acting came very naturally. I thoroughly enjoyed this film. I always say that Iron Man is the blueprint for every origin story going forward. They pretty much use the Iron Man blueprint, is what I call it, for Captain America, Thor, like everybody essentially has that like Iron Man treatment, which for me, I'm not mad at, because it gives you, it's like when you're introducing a new character, it's good to have that familiarity, because you can sway people easier that way, because they're like, I kind of understand this a little bit. I kind of see what happened, but if you throw in some curves, maybe then you can like up a person's origin story. I think this would have helped Captain Marvel if they would have kind of did it that way, but they kind of went a whole different. Tony has a lot of emotion in certain aspects, and Captain Marvel doesn't, and I think that's what made her film fail. I mean, it obviously didn't fail, but I mean, like with fans essentially. But my mom is a huge Iron Man fan, so I can't talk bad about him in the house.
Oh, there's a bias. So even if you agreed, you wouldn't be able to say.
She's not here, so I'm going to speak freely. She's a huge Iron Man fan, and I get why. It's because as humans, we like to see other humans win for the most part. If you're a good person at that, you want to see somebody that's down and out win. And his origin story was all about pretty much him like resetting him back to like factory settings essentially. And not just within himself, but within his company. Like everything got reset with him. And so it was because I always say Iron Man is, even though he's an adult, he's still a child because of how he lost his parents. So he's stuck in like this child mentality because he was young when they died. So he inherited all this money, all this responsibility, and he's essentially like the Batman of the MCU.
Right. He was like 20 or 21, I think, is what they mentioned, even in the first film. 21, I think.
Yeah.
The passing of a giant, they say. Yeah.
So for me, he's a perpetual child, and it's not until he starts to understand what's really out there in the real world, which his change starts to begin. And I think it culminates not just from the first two, but even like up until Avengers. Like it culminates up to that point. Yeah.
Actually, I just wanted to mention, because Alt brought this up, and I like it. I like that this was brought up in chat. It's kind of relevant to what we're talking about. He said he loves watching it in chronological order, essentially. You go Captain America, first Avenger, then Captain Marvel, and so on. And that's a fantastic way to watch the MCU. But I'll be honest, the way we're watching it right now is really interesting, because if you just skip through and only watch one character's arc, it's a very different story. You're only seeing what they see of the world, and the rest is hearsay. Mm-hmm. And so this is going to be interesting, just these 9 films, because this is literally all Tony Stark knows of the world that we would know about. And I think that's going to really help us get down to the brass tacks of this conversation, because this is the stuff. This is it. The real question is, where do you watch Howard the Duck? So I watch Howard the Duck right before Endgame as like a, whoa, what would happen if, like a what if comic right before Endgame.
Well, right before, like right after, what's that, Guardians of the Galaxy? Because you see him.
Right.
You see him, and then you can watch the movie and get to know him, and then you see him in Endgame. So it's like,
I like that.
Yeah. I'm obsessed with Duck. I love her.
So can we talk about the fact that Tony Stark in Iron Man 2, this actually goes to the crux of our discussion here. This is something I wanted to bring up before I forgot. In Iron Man 2, he creates a new element in order to save himself.
But he didn't create it with the sole intention of saving himself. I think he came about it, but mind you, he came about it in a way that like people were pushing it on him. Like he wouldn't have known about this if Nick Fury didn't say like, yo, like he gave him like little tidbits, made his brain kind of like tick and think. He didn't create this and say, oh, I'm about to heal myself off of this. He's a mechanic, he's an inventor, he's like a scientist. Like I think he created it and realized it could work for him.
Let me hold on. I just need to put this in here for a second. Okay,
please,
so let's go down this route. So Iron Man created the element to save himself because he was dying because the palladium was poisoning his bloodstream.
Mm-hmm.
He also created the Mark I to save himself out of the cave, but his intention in that was to save himself and Yinsen. So then but here's the thing, you have Thor, where the whole movie is cruxed upon the fact that he's so cocky that he's basically banished to Earth and has no power, and he basically traipses these humans around trying to get this hammer, and his drama is brought to Earth. That's really heroic. And then you have the Incredible Hulk, where the entire time Bruce Banner is trying to heal himself, and in doing so, he's basically allowed Abomination to be created, and of course we never got Leader to reference there. So in essence, every hero has a bit of selfishness because there's a bit of self-serving, with the exception, I think, of Steve Rogers, because Steve Rogers is honestly one of the only like selfless characters of the MCU in a sense.
Thor. After Thor.
Nope.
Thor 2.
After Thor.
At the end of Thor. From Thor 2 on, Thor is also at the same level. Because in order to hold,
but he leaves the 9 realms in complete chaos because he does not take the throne as he's supposed to, because he wants to go have a relationship with Jane Foster, who ends up dumping him.
All for the greater good.
Of his love life, baby.
Yeah.
Listen, we can turn any of them into a negative.
I mean, you can. I mean, but for me, like kind of like going back to Iron Man, if you think about it, in the first Iron Man, his I think it's what's his name, Jensen, I believe, told him, "Don't waste this," right? And I feel like that's the first innocent that Tony Stark, as like pre Iron Man or post Iron Man, how you want to, because he was still Iron Man at this time, lost, like his first quote unquote soldier, if I'm a quote Avengers or whatever. It's the first person he lost, and he told him like, don't waste it. And I feel like he has taken that with him throughout every movie that he's like, every situation he has been in. So in Iron Man 2, we saw that he was pretty much giving up. Like he had those little cartridges that he was like dispensing out, changing it up. But he pretty much like sealed his fate. He gave Pepper the company. He did everything he needed to do to set up for his death because he knew it was coming.
And he
But
let
when
Rhodey take the suit.
Right.
right.
And
And when
without
he
putting any limitations on it.
And when he
Exactly.
found out that he could possibly survive this, I feel like he still was living by Jensen's words to make the most of it. So why give up? Jensen didn't give up. Jensen gave his life. So why would Tony? Like that's how I kind of see it.
That's fair. And I agree. The moment he's on the donut and he's eating a donut in the Iron Man suit, you can tell. Maybe it's the moment he pisses the suit. I don't know. One of those two moments is when he's absolutely just at the rock bottom and he's given up. But
Nick Fury knew that, which is why he saved him a little bit with Natasha's help and then gave him the idea to look just a little bit deeper.
do you think that they put Natasha on him because Fury had an inkling that something was going on with Iron Man, but they didn't know, so they put her on the case to find out, and so she dug and found that he had a palladium problem? Because that's the only thing I can figure out.
I think she did. I think he did because I believe at this time, like Coulson was a fixture around the business. So it's possible that he even went back and was like, something's different, something's weird. You know, obviously Coulson knows how to observe. And I think to get in a little bit more deeper, a little more stealthy, he sent in Natasha because that's her bag.
Right.
Yeah.
Lady Crossheart just came into the chat. Commander Crossheart, welcome. Thank you for showing up. We are in the thick of talking about why Iron Man is a total not hero.
Which me and Marvelite do not agree.
I had to do that. That had to come out once. I had to.
Yeah.
The odds are not.
You keep it up, you're
favor.
gonna lose your audio again. Don't worry about it.
I like
Exactly.
that. You guys have the virus just ready to go. Like, kill his computer now.
Yeah.
It's over.
We don't disagree, though, that over the first three films, even partly in Avengers, his attitude, his approach is very still self-motivated, and he's trying to find his way, no doubt. I mean, he's trying to do the right thing, but he's not. Even the creation of the Iron Man suit was for selfish reasons. His stuff got sold around the world, and he didn't do quite a good enough job of keeping Obadiah Stane under wraps as a CEO because he was out getting drunk too much. And since he was out doing that, he didn't have a choice but to do something drastic to change that. So he created Iron Man. And I don't mean the first iteration. The first iteration obviously was because he was trying to get out of the cave. That's fine. But Mark II, he went out of his way to make in order to get his weapons back, to make change finally that he should have been doing from 21 when he got a drinking problem. That's Iron Man, not RDJ.
You cannot sit here and say that a 21-year-old should know how to take care of a business, extremely know right from wrong like that within that business.
No,
that's
what I'm saying.
difficult.
That's what I'm saying. That's what I'm saying. I'm not putting it all on him. What I'm saying is he, over the year from when he took the business until we find out that, you know, Iron Man gets kidnapped, until Tony Stark gets kidnapped, from that 10 years, that decade. At the end of that decade, when he's getting on 30 years old, yeah, he damn well better start looking around instead of just partying and showing up and drinking at every event where he's literally bringing crates of alcohol to
that's
military
essentially what
events.
happened when he got kidnapped. The kidnapping was a catalyst for him to see change.
No,
That's
I
the way
to go.
agreed. But he escapes. But when he does escape and makes Mark II, he basically says, okay, now I have to try to make up for what I haven't done right for the last 10 years, which is fine. That's a good thing. I agree. But he doesn't do it by changing policies and changing the company. He does it by creating a giant weapon and then doing it with an ego the size of Wisconsin on his shoulder.
Okay, hold on a second. Let's go back to this. He did not create Mark II with the intention of going after his weapons. Here's the thing. It was not until he was approached with the fact that his weapons were still being sold. the press conference where he got rid of the weapons productions. That was his response from coming out of the cave. That's me stopping, because he figured if I stop it now, it won't go any further. It wasn't until he found out that Obadiah was literally the one that was stymieing them the whole time that actually kicked him off of the board, that the weapons were still being sold. Then he's sitting there and he's watching the news reports and he's not sure what to do, but he realizes what's in his hand is he's working on that gauntlet, that he has the power to take back those weapons and stop what he started. And so he then goes in, and if you think about it, he didn't just go for the weapons, he went to save the people as well. Because it was when that reporter came up to him and showed him what was going on with the people in that region, then he went after his weapons and went after to save them. And so there was a bit of making amends. And I get that, I understand that these weapons are self-serving, but at the same time, if you watch, he's doing the best what he can, and he is trying to make amends without any counsel whatsoever. There is nobody that is kind of guiding him in this change of heart, and so he's doing the best that he can. And we know that if anybody is going down a destructive path and they decide they're going to change and be different and be better, the best thing to do is have somebody to keep them accountable and have somebody that's going to help guide them. And unfortunately, when he went to Rhodey with what was going on, Rhodey said, I don't want to know. I think that if Rhodey wouldn't have been the jerk friend at that moment, then and he would have said, let me be in on this, let me talk to you, and him be a friend, Tony Stark would have done more heroic things because he needed that helper. He needed that person to guide him. And Rhodey was a perfect person to give him that.
I'm going to step in just for a little bit and just talk about that a little bit, because it's not, even though somebody's your best friend, as much as Rhodey has put up with Tony, it is not his job to step in to hold his hand during this time, especially when it can backfire on him and his job in the seated position that he's in. We all know that Tony kind of flies by the seat of his own kind of like thing or whatever he wants to do. It's unfair to put Rhodey in a position where he has to essentially babysit or guide or do all these type of things. There's other ways of learning and not having somebody kind of like hold your hand. I'm not saying that it wouldn't have been nice to have Rhodey there with him. He eventually came to that side, but if there's a trope in movies and TV shows where like a Black man or woman is always counsel to the white lead character. And that's a trope that like really irks my soul just a little bit, because sometimes it doesn't go back the other way. It's very one-sided. So I feel like Rhodey was stepping up for himself in that moment to be like, listen, don't tell me anymore, because like by law, he would probably have to detain him by law. Like you just can't let a friend go, a la Captain America.
They actually go into that in Iron Man 2 a lot more, because the whole idea of him taking the suit, the government's breathing down Rhodey's neck the entire first half of the film, going, dude, go get it. You literally have just let him take this. You even wrote a report saying you should take it from him. Go get it. And then he doesn't. But then, when Iron Man pisses his suit on TikTok, they're going to take his suit.
Not TikTok.
I mean, it might
as
as well.
Back then it was MySpace at that point.
Or
he was on a Vine. He was on a Vine or something. It was something nice.
Yeah.
But anyway, slice it. He. And of course, I just a nod to Daft Punk. I love that they played Robot Rock as two robots beat the living crap out of each other. That got me giddy, and that's why when people are like Iron Man 2, I'm like, but that scene, that's all I needed. That's just me.
The scene was amazing.
And honestly, we're talking about like progression and stuff. If you think about it, when Rhodey made the decision to kind of like turn Tony away, when Tony went to him to say, I want to show you what I'm working on, where he did that, it's almost as if he did a 180 later on, because in Infinity War, when Rogers comes to him after the children of Thanos are coming after them, he's directed by Thunderbolt to arrest them, and he says no. I guess that's the court martial.
Right. He even spends 2 years on the raft for it. So
yeah,
which is pretty cool. Spoilers.
Everybody has their arc. Yes.
And that's what I love about the MCU. I mean, if you think about watching, because I was just talking about watching Hulk's arc, watch Rhodey's arc. So you'd watch Iron Man 2, you'd watch is he even an Avenger? He's not.
He's not.
No, he's in Civil War.
He's in Age of Ultron.
Age of Ultron, Civil War.
And then the other two Iron Man
Infinity
movies,
War.
or the other two Avengers movies. So his arc's pretty short and small too, but he's going to get Armored Wars, so we'll see how that goes.
Yes.
Yeah, that's gonna be great. I can't wait for that.
And I love Don Cheadle. Like he is, love Don Cheadle.
Yeah.
Yeah, same.
I've loved him since Boogie Nights. He played a great character in that. Off topic. So Iron Man as a film, I don't think we're going to disagree. I think we're all going to rate it high. I don't know what we'll rate it, but I definitely think that there's not a lot of clash from this film because he's on his way up. He's growing. He's getting better. And the flaws he has, we agree on. He's selfish because of what has happened to him. As Lala put it in the chat, which I want to read. If I can find it again. Where is it? Where did it go?
Writer.
Oh, wow. This is a lot of chat.
Yeah.
Oh, wow. Wow.
You want me to read it? I know.
Yeah, you know what I'm talking about.
Yeah. So I wrote that Tony Stark is a man blinded by grief that drowned himself in wealth, women, and glamour. That's who he is. His whole story is grief. And we eventually find out about that grief in what movie is that? Iron Man 3.
Civil War, we find out more.
That's right, Civil War. Thank you. Civil War, like where that stems from. Because up to this point, all we know is that like his parents are dead. You know, they didn't really give us any texture on that. We just know that his parents are dead. He's running this business that he doesn't know how to run. And then in Civil War, when you see him reliving that moment, it gives a lot more context into the first two films. Of the character.
I agree. I still have a lot of arguments about Civil War, and we're going to get onto that because there's going to be a lot of fun arguments just about Iron Man versus Captain America and the stance that people take on that movie on itself. So,
well, Snibbits and I were talking about it, and I think I lean toward more of Snibbits' side about Civil War in general, I think, when we've talked. So it will be an interesting conversation.
Yes, I'll be on the side by myself, so it's fine. And it's hard for me because Captain America is my favorite character, so
no, and that's why I like these stories, because you can love your character and then go, wait, what are they doing? Why are they in this situation? I don't like it. So if I were to say that my favorite moment in the Iron Man film, the first Iron Man film, I would have to say it's the dawning of Mark II before it gets painted. I absolutely love that moment where they're going up and down the suit, and you get to see all the little flaps, and the music's great. It's just such a simple scene, but it perfection.
Like it does something to me. I don't know what it does.
It does something.
It's awesome.
Have a great night. But it lights me up.
See y'all.
Thanks for coming by.
Bye.
So what do you guys think?
I would say I like the whole movie, but I would say my favorite, like, I guess cinematographic scene is essentially when he has on like a full Mark II and he goes to like go get his dismantle his bombs and all that kind of stuff, and they hit him with from that truck or whatever, and he falls into the hole, and then he comes up and you just see like the line of his eyes in his like hands. That's like, I want that as a poster on my wall, or I want that to take up my whole wall, just that,
the whole wall.
Because whole wall, because it's such we're in 2021 and graphics from 2008, it still looks good, it still feels good, it still makes an impression. And I remember seeing that in the theater and I got chills. I was like, oh, he man. It's just I love that. I love that part.
Yeah.
That's a good picture.
I agree.
So for me, and by the way, that was actually the Mark III armor actually at that point. Once it was painted. Yeah, because that's when he fixed the freezing.
The freezing. That's right.
Oh, so was there a second set of armor? Like he actually built another armor and then painted it?
Yeah, when he did the actual mech test with with Mark II, he did the altitude test and he froze
Duh.
at high altitude,
Mark
and then
II
immediately
is
Yeah.
roadies.
Mark
Yeah.
III is roadies, or no,
Yeah, Mark III is
Mark
roadies.
II is roadies. It's the silver one,
Right.
and then
Oh,
and then he takes it over. Yeah, so
Yeah, good
my,
point.
my
Mark III.
I think my favorite thing about my favorite scene from that movie has to be the testing phases.
Mm.
There's a lot of times where you get like the superhero that he has these abilities, he makes this thing, and then all of a sudden he's wearing the full fleshed out suit and you never really see what's going on.
Right.
When we get that more in Iron Man 3 because we don't really get to see him building the suits as much with the exception of the first test of the Mark 43. But
Mm-hmm.
honestly, throughout Iron Man 1, you see him improving and he's laying himself up as a futurist. He's constantly trying to solve problems, even though he's made a great suit of armor. He's doing something different. He does the Mark 1 was too clunky. Let's fix it up. He works on repulsor the repulsor cannons on his hands and his feet to adjust for flight instead of doing rocket propelled. He's constantly solving problems and it's not working out. I mean, he destroys one of his cars in the process, and almost burns up another one.
Not
And
just
then of
any
course,
car, dude. Not just
I
any
know.
car.
And my wife and I've actually taken a picture with that car. They actually, there's a place that actually takes that car around places where you can kind of sit there and you can be with the wrecked. It was a Shelby, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
It's a shame.
So but that whole scene where he's trying to get the percentages right of the how much repulsion, how he's hitting the ceiling, how he's trying to use a hand cannon and it throws him back up against the wall. The fact that even as smart as he is, it's not perfect immediately. That whole scene just made it more real for me, and that's what I loved about it.
Which is funny because it's the scene with the least believable physics, but that's okay.
Yeah.
I love the Iron Man series because I literally have to suspend my disbelief. So when people are like, "How can you believe, the MCU?" I'm like, because immediately I have to believe that Iron Man won't liquefy his guts flying in that suit at the speeds he's flying in. So yeah, I
But
I have
I mean,
to believe it.
I feel like it's still believable in a sense because we see the genius that is Tony Stark. So like you would assume that he would equate for that. You know what I'm saying?
I
He
agree,
would.
but I was a person who tried to go into piloting, and the way those suits work for high speed jets is really it helps them not pass out, but the conditioning they have to go through so they don't pass out is really really intense. And Tony never touches, and I'm not trying to say he has to touch it, but he would get used to it over time. But in those first flights, he would get sick. He'd probably throw up or pass out. And if they had just touched on that for a second, I would have been much happier. But again, I just suspend my disbelief. I don't. It's fine. I don't care if he hits a wall at 100 miles an hour and doesn't die.
Another one of those like
Well,
this is another one of those just like 10 minutes. We just it's added 10 minutes.
I know. Can we get the 4.5-hour Iron Man director's fan cut, please?
Yeah, please release the Favreau cut.
The Favreau Snidbits cut.
Yes.
Just saying.
But honestly, if he has something built into his suit that helps filter out urine, then I imagine there's got to be like a vomit bag somewhere in that.
Not
It
even about
has
the
to be.
vomit. I'm just worried about his really tender brain at Mach 7. That's all.
I'm sure it's balanced in there.
When
Okay.
I get the number 50 follower, laugh out loud. I'm so confused as to what's going on.
Same.
Oh yeah, the
It's a-
Stark is futuristic. I agree with you. Nobody's baby. Somebody's in on something. Psycho's in on something. I don't know what it is. And there's a lot of very similar emotes. Somebody help. Oh, okay. Joker's got a new emoticon. Okay, cool. It's Zim.
Oh, he probably opens up another emoticon when he gets 50 followers or something.
I see. Wait. I thought you had more followers. Have you guys following Joker? I hope you guys are following Joker. I figured you were.
I'm pretty sure I am.
I think I am.
Let's make sure Joker gets some more followers because he needs them. He needs them.
Yeah, I'm following. Yeah, don't make me drop my phone fuse. No, sorry.
So,
Yeah, I'm following him.
finishing up with the Iron Man stuff so that we can cover these other two films in the next hour. I don't think we're going to spend a whole lot of time on Iron Man 2 because there's a lot of just filler. But 50 subs, that's what I thought. Okay, I was like 50 followers. I knew you had way more than that.
Gotcha.
So Iron Man is a film when I saw it, I gave it a 10. I'm going to probably continue to give it a 10. I've seen it dozens of times. I would recommend it to anybody as a good way to start the MCU. Or just wants to watch a superhero movie for the first time. This might be the first or an only one, I would say. If you don't like superhero movies, but you want to try one, watch this one. So I'd say 10.
I see that Joker. I say he's like the MCU's Batman, essentially.
Yeah.
The only difference is Tony in the MCU is at least trying to make the world better in the sense of not only being an Avenger, but cleaning up the like the energy use and all this piece he's trying. Whereas Bruce is like, I'm Batman, and that's all I'm gonna be. And he's going, but anyway.
Can we just say that Batman, if he would have invested his money in some programs, versus buying weapons to beat the faces of bad guys, like Gotham could have probably cleaned up a little bit faster. But I'm just saying,
I agree. I totally agree. That's a whole different discussion we can talk about too.
My parents died. I need to punch faces.
Just because it's interesting.
See you, Matt. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you so much, Matt.
He said if one day I love
it.
That's funny.
So Iron Man, or what did you guys rate Iron Man before we move on? I don't want to do that to you.
Go ahead, Lala. You go first.
Don't give anything a 10, even if I believe it is. I'll just never do that because I always feel like anything has room for improvement. So I will give it a 9 because to me it's rewatchable. I enjoy it 9 times out of 10. If I give it time, I'll find something new in it that I didn't find before. Just as like the more I explore. Also, it gets like a 9 because I would have given it like a 9.5, but that 0.5 is Pepper. I didn't care for her in the first movie, so I'll just. She seemed very whiny and like.
Oh, that take out the trash line was like novel. Like I loved that.
Yeah, that's her best line in the MCU.
I'm not saying that she doesn't have her moments, but I just felt like in the first one it was like, oh, we get it, you love him, and it was just like, okay, that's great. But she got better. I will say Pepper got better as it kept going. I will say that. I just didn't like her in the first Iron Man.
Don't you mean Rescue?
Stop. She wasn't rescued. No, I'm sorry.
Let's face it. Gwyneth Paltrow doesn't even know which Marvel movie she's been in.
Exactly at this point. It's like, all right, girl.
Did you have you guys ever seen the cooking show with Favreau where he's talking,
Mm-hmm.
and she like he talked about when they were in Spider-Man Homecoming, and she's like, I wasn't in Spider-Man Homecoming.
I don't know who that actor is.
Yes, you were.
You know them.
Funny.
You were on screen with them. No, I wasn't.
That's great.
Go back to your selling weirdness. All right. So Tony.
Okay. From a Marvel fan standpoint, yes, it's obviously a 10. From a movie standpoint, all general, I probably would have to go back with a 9.5. It's not a perfect film, and listen, I am an Iron Man fan. I don't know why I let my family convince me to get a Captain America seat because I was really going for the Iron Man one, but supposedly it looked better. So I defer to my family when it comes to aesthetics. But it is a quintessential film. It is I don't say that much, but if you really want to appreciate, the MCU, you have to watch Iron Man. It doesn't matter what order, you have to watch Iron Man, and it's because it really helps understand where it's come from and where it's going. And if you really think about it, Iron Man is one of the few choice films that I think are a little bit more adult than the rest of the MCU.
Mm-hmm. For sure. Yeah.
It did. The tone changes as Disney had more creative control, which isn't a bad thing, but it's one of those things where you had to be a little bit more understanding that there was going to be a lot more adult messages and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And Iron Man 2 even touches that a little bit too, but definitely a 9.5 from a MCU standpoint. It is a 10 for me. It is extremely rewatchable. It has great pacing. You really end up liking Tony Stark, other than Mr. Stidbids. You end up really liking Tony Stark.
I love Tony Stark. I just don't think he's a hero.
Yeah, I think the only thing that kind of drops down my opinion of of the movie itself is I hate when there's continuity changes throughout like a themed thing. And so like as much as I like Mark Ruffalo, the continuity change from Norton to Ruffalo bothers me. As much as I love Don Cheadle, and I think Don Cheadle personally is a better roadie than Ron Howard is
Terrence Howard.
Terrence Howard. I almost said Ron Howard. Than Terrence Howard. Um, I don't like the continuity change. I would have preferred if they would have stuck to him, but I understand the drama that took place that let for him to and I think he has a right to be upset that he got kicked out of the out of his contract. But am I glad that we have Rhodey? Absolutely, or Don Cheadle as Rhodey. So the continuity things kind of bother me a little bit. That's kind of where I lose, points for a film.
Yeah, that's understandable. That didn't really bother me for the most part because it was so early on that I was able to just like continue on with it. But say Terrence Howard was there because for the most part, for me, I know that Edward Norton's Hulk is Mark Ruffalo's Hulk, and I understand the drama between that. But I didn't think that Hulk was going anywhere. So when he was finished with that film, I was like, okay, he's done with that film. And then when I heard all the other stuff, I was like, oh, it would have been great to see him in this world. For me, Terrence Howard, as good as he was in that film, and I feel like him and Robert Downey Jr.'s chemistry is just a touch better than him and Don Cheadle's. Because it was so early on, just personally for me, I was just like, okay, I can make the transition. It was a shocker when I first saw it. I was like, oh, okay. Because I tried to stay away from like media about it, but for me, if Terrence Howard would have been Rhodey for like a couple of movies and then they would have switched him out, I would have had a big issue with that.
Yeah,
I'd have been like, yeah, I've been way more invested in his take the character. But since it was so early on, I was able to move on fairly easy. No offense to Terrence Howard, because I've been a fan of his since he was on Living Single in the 90s.
Hustle and Flow is brilliant as a film.
Been a fan.
I love that film.
Okay.
What?
No, I was gonna say, I also think what disappointed me was the fact that it wasn't just so much that it was like the character change and stuff, but like you could see the direction of the film where Rhodey looked at that suit and it's like it was like a promise of more, and then it changed on him, and I felt robbed for Terrence Howard from that until I really got to see Don Cheadle, because I think Don Cheadle has a better comedic timing, I think, than Terrence Howard does in some cases.
Well, I take him more seriously too. He seems a little bit more like the military man to me. He has that rigid nature about him that really fit for the military role for me. That's just me.
When I saw him in the Ocean's films, it was hard to take him seriously in Iron Man 2 at first. So,
okay.
Like I loved him in Oceans, but yeah, like it's a completely different character. But yeah, I mean, I think he won me over when he first appeared and he said, "It's me, I'm here, let's get over it," because that was a direct reference of him being a different person.
Yeah,
and
so
when he said it, he looked at the camera.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
and that was Marvel basically saying, "Okay, it's done. We know you don't like it. Let's just get past it."
Right.
But I like that though. I like when you just put it out there. Like you don't shy away from it. You don't try to put a big bag over the belly and act like this person isn't pregnant. You just kind of you just face it.
They owned it. Yeah, I agree.
Yeah.
So as far as Iron Man 2, we're going to all agree that it's definitely not Iron Man as far as quality. And I think we should probably, since we have 45 minutes left, and I think we should talk about Avengers far more than Iron Man 2 when talking about the Tony Stark arc. I hate having to say that. Mostly because we already touched upon those bits of Iron Man 2 that I think are relevant. Him creating the element, him getting poisoned. Of course, what we know, him taking down Justin Hammer, him taking down Vanko, those are, on the level of being sort of heroic, or at least cleaning up your dad's mess, I guess, is really more than anything.
Sins of the Father, which is another MCU thing, Sins of the Father, because like Thor had to deal with it, T'Challa had to deal with it, Sins of the Father. It's a good theme going across the MCU.
I like.
We also just say how kind of the villain of Ant-Man and the Wasp has the same origin story as Ivan Vanko. I'm just gonna say it.
Yeah. I enjoy it. I mean, just to touch on Iron Man 2 real quick, and then we can hop to Avengers, once everybody does their thing. I liked Iron Man 2 simply because we got to see more Rhodey, because he did say, next time, baby, but, different actor. But, and essentially this was his next time. And we got to see like more of a comic Tony where he's drunk. I think that's the only time they touch on him being a drunk. Honestly, I mean, they do it a little bit in the first one, but they touch on it more in the second one and the third one. Third one's more like flashbacks, but the second one they really show him in the thick of it. Which, I mean, I'm pretty sure if any Tony Stark fan wanted to see that part of him, because that's part of his character. It's a big part of his character. And I'm a big fan of Mickey Rourke. I think he's a phenomenal actor, especially when you give him something meaty to do. I'm not saying everything he's done is great, but I think he's an actor that because of how he looks now, people don't give him roles or put him in positions where I feel like he could be in. So I enjoyed him in this film, and I just enjoyed the aspect of bringing in a female, which is Black Widow. And you brought her in super early, though, even though you didn't really do anything with her for a long time. But you brought in a female to kind of give us that aspect. And I do like Sam Rockwell. I love Sam Rockwell as Justin Hammer, because I feel like the comedy in that, I don't think anybody else but Sam Rockwell could play that. Plus, Sam Rockwell dances in every movie that he's in.
No,
and
he's
this movie was like
different douchebag, and nobody else
he
can.
is.
And
Nobody else.
Him.
No, we're not. And I'm excited about that. I enjoyed Iron Man 2. It gave, because honestly, because also it foreshadowed like Wakanda and Black Panther at the same time too. So like it just sprinkled some nice stuff. Like I feel like
it gave us Peter Parker for the first time too.
Mm-hmm.
And if you essentially, I really feel like I really retcon that. I was like, hey, but I was like, that's cute if you want to do that.
He is an Iron Man fan. They should cover that. They talk about how he's fanboyed over Iron Man his whole life, and so it makes sense he would have been at Iron Man's. He's in New York.
But where his parents? Where his auntie at? Where she at? Somebody should have
been when his parents were alive, so they were at the conference with him, or at the.
And if you think about it, it wasn't like a throwaway when during that opening montage where in Homecoming where Peter's taking video of stuff, that he actually films a portion of the Stark Expo and shows it in the background, because that's where it all started for him.
I think they retconned that for us, like how Vision.
Oh, they totally did. That kid is not Spider-Man.
Which I'm really not mad at it. I'm really not mad at it, because if you can find a connection somehow, you might as well do it just to make the overall story nice, even like a little more thicker, which is cool to me. But I enjoyed Iron Man 2. And I like to see the friends fight. I like seeing friends fight, because sometimes friends fight and they just did it in suits, like heavily armored suits. So.
I want to know how all the girls throwing wine bottles and watermelons at him didn't get cut with shards of glass when he was blowing them up.
Because they were fractured to dust.
Or most of the MCU is actually a cartoon shot in live action.
Exactly.
I agree.
I just forgive it and let that happen. I do like Iron Man 2 a lot more than a lot of people do. They give it a lot of hate, a lot of grief. I think it's fun. Is it the best one? No. I think it's better than 3 though, because at least there's no trick ending in 2. It's just straight up, act 1, 2, 3, done and done. I like that. Nice, simple story. With Iron Man 3, you're going to hear me complain about when you put a trick ending in a movie, it can't stand the test of time. Because when I watch it, I'm not excited for the end, because I know already.
Like that's what happens when you watch any movie. You know already.
No,
yeah,
but
except for
it's a trick.
Except
ending.
for you go back and you look and see, like, could you have noticed it before the trick turn? Like, was there enough like little tidbits to say, okay, yeah, obviously I completely missed those references. So it does make you dive a little bit deeper.
It's my own thing. It's a little thing.
Get to that when we get to Iron Man 3.
Yeah, we will. Okay, so I'm gonna say that Lala, what do you rate Iron Man 2 just generally? I know we didn't go too deep into it, but like I said, I don't know if there's much in it other than just him growing as a person.
I mean, I enjoyed it. I enjoyed I enjoyed the Iron Man trilogy. I give it an 8. I give it an 8. It's a solid 8 for me.
All right.
All right.
Tony.
Trying to be long-winded, so I would probably give this a 7. It's a great film, and I think a 7 is a high number for me when I'm talking about movies. I will say this: I liked Justin Hammer. I like the fact that there's not going to be, he's not a throwaway character. It seems like it, but he's going to be more, influential. And we do see him in like the one-shot Hail the King. When we see what happens to Trevor Slattery afterward from Iron Man 3. I really didn't like Venko that much. I like Mickey Rourke even less recently because he actually referenced in a tweet, or I think it was an Instagram message about Law and Order SVU, and he actually did a jab about how the MCU movie or the Marvel movies are crap. And he just complains about his character. He wanted to do all of these creative things with the character, and he didn't get to do it. And he hates Favreau basically. So I have a problem with Mickey Rourke, but I don't want that to like influence my opinion. I think it is more watchable. I think there are some subtle things. I love how they expand Shield in this. I like how we get like Coulson and references to the bigger universe. Iron Man has always seemed to be like the guy where you get more tidbits into things. I mean, even at that end where he's brought on as a consultant, there is a reference to something going on in the Atlantic Ocean. There is a flag on a map or a point of interest in Africa, being Wakanda. You have like New Mexico, which we know will be Thor. So I love how they played into expanding it. And really, if you think about it, Iron Man 2 is really a character study of, if you were a governing entity, what would you think of hiring Tony Stark? And we kind of get the idea he's not ready yet. Put a fork in him and put him back in the oven. So
I would make the argument that he's not ready at all. And when we get into Avengers, they say they don't have a choice. And they bring on a series of unstable people that includes Tony Stark. And then they give him Avenger status and a team, which I know Cap's the team leader, but Iron Man's kind of like the backbone of the team. Like Cap might be the brain, but Tony Stark is the spine, if you will.
Well, Tony literally, he's not the boss. He just pays for everything.
Right.
Yeah, that was referenced.
But he has more to say about that than that. He pays for everything, but he also has a lot to say about strategy and about how things approach. But when we see them, coming in Avengers, I didn't give a rating to Iron Man 3. Let me do that real quick. I'll give it a 7 as well, and then we'll move on. Iron Man 2, that is. When we see them all come into Avengers, specifically Tony, because that's who we're talking about. So when we see him come in, he's building Stark Tower, has just finished building Stark Tower, and is trying to hook it up to be the first clean energy building, in New York of its type, in the world, really, if you want to get down to it. And he's hanging out with Pepper and just living the high life after getting that palladium removed from his chest and getting his new suit, and that's where we find him. But it's only when Loki shows up that they have to bring in the Avengers, and that includes Iron Man, who does not want to do it. Even in those moments where he's like, I don't want to do this, Pepper makes him. She's like, take this stuff, do your homework, I'm leaving. But he's like, but what about our sex?
You know what? Listen, the way that you are doing this, it's crazy to me. Like you act like Loki bombed the place right when Coulson came up and was like, listen, read all this stuff. He was literally about to have a time with his girl. We all know that Tony is quippy and he's goofy, but that doesn't mean that he doesn't do his due diligence.
That's fair.
But to make it seem like he didn't care, just
and he's not just there with his girl. They are celebrating a momentous event where they have a building that is completely powered by a mini arc reactor, or by an arc reactor that is tapped into the building. That means clean energy for the future.
Agreed, but
which is going to be a reference.
Let's be clear. They're only celebrating 12% of the event.
No, she's celebrating 12%.
He's celebrating her 12% contribution to the event.
Yes, that's what they're
I
celebrating.
know,
It's
I'm
not
kidding. I had to play off that
And
12%.
think of it this way:
you so bad. But continue.
in the moment where he lands on the balcony and he is basically sending Coulson to voicemail, you have to understand something. Up until this point, he has just been a consultant for Shield, and everything that they've had him do has been schmoozing people, because we saw him go after Thunderbolt Ross in Incredible Hulk, which technically takes place after Iron Man 2, because he's hired on as a consultant by Nick Fury at the end of Iron Man 2. We have him. We find out that he gave technical specs to the Project Insight for the repulsor engines for the new helicarriers. After this movie, like he is brought onto something that doesn't have to go outside of working hours. He has not been called on at any point in this to do anything other than give his opinion on things. And so he is not going to let that distract him with what he's doing. I would do the same thing. If my boss were to call me on a cell phone and say, hey, I need to talk to you about an event that's going to happen in 3 weeks from now, I'd be like, you know what? I'm just going to let that go to voicemail. I can deal with that tomorrow.
See you in the morning.
But I don't think Coulson does this to him all the time. I don't think he calls in and like, hey, I need to talk to you right away. He's like, he makes appointments like he did. He was patient with him in Iron Man, the original. He took his time. He was like, he tried to make an appointment with him 3-4 times before he was finally like, dude, let's make this appointment. So I would say that him showing up to the building and making it that clear that they need to talk would show him that when dealing with S.H.I.E.L.D., which is the protector of the world, that they should probably be paying attention to something. Something's up. Tony should have known. But he doesn't have instincts because he's not a hero.
I'm gonna wreck that by one statement here. If he was patient and he didn't bother Tony that much, how in the heck did Pepper know about the love interest that Coulson had? Because Coulson has talked to them on numerous occasions.
Talks to Pepper on numerous occasions, not Tony.
Well, why? Because Tony won't take the call because he uses Pepper to lead through.
You find out in Avengers that Coulson's death hit Tony more harder than it hit anybody, which means that they have a long-standing relationship, because he was pretty much Coulson was pretty much Tony's first point of contact.
Agreed.
And that went through like all the Iron Man films up into Avengers. His death hit Tony harder than anybody else, and Tony knew about the girl that he dated. Tony knew things about him that other people didn't know. So their relationship was a little bit, for me, from what I've watched, was a little bit different than like everybody else's.
Well, you also, because what happens is, and this is where Iron Man 2 kind of goes into play, I think Coulson earned Tony's respect when he's on lockdown, and Coulson basically says, you try anything, I'll tase you and I'll watch Super Nanny while you drool on the floor. Yeah, so it's kind of like that whole thing. And then immediately, like, the respect that you see between the two of them, even though Tony's very short with him, that's how he is with everybody. I mean, look how he treated Rhodey in Iron Man 1. He was always hands off, and he was always making him wait and doing all these things, and they were best friends. Yeah. And then you see the banter between the two of them, or between him and Coulson in Iron Man 2, to the point of where he's like the liaison with Tony, and what's going on?
Read that there. That's what I'm saying.
They're work buddies, but yeah. But at the same time, like, Tony doesn't have like a differentiation if you think about it. He doesn't have a really good track record on how to build relationships. I mean, look how he struggled with Pepper.
He doesn't treat anybody different. He essentially tried to treat. It took him a while to even treat Pepper as as an equal for the most part, because he treated her like a buddy that he liked to kiss, essentially. You know what I mean? And it took a minute to build up that understanding of like how to separate those things. But like, I still don't feel like they were work buddies. Like, I don't really agree with Nobody's Baby on that. I don't really feel like they were just work buddies, because like Coulson had a code to get into his workspace. Nobody really goes into his workspace. Like, we don't really see a lot of people in there. Also, like, he knew well enough to know that once Tony hung up the phone, he was already on his way up there anyway. So the point, calling him was a moot point. He just did it just to do it, to essentially announce himself, because he was coming up anyway to be like, here, I'm putting this on your lap, deal with it.
I think, if anything, Coulson was being respectful and saying, put your clothes on, I'm coming through the door.
Stop, he wasn't.
That's what he was doing. If he was coming up anyway, he was giving that pre-call saying, dude, take the sock off the door, put your trousers on. Psycho, we are deep into Avengers, and now we are well into the argument about whether Tony is friends with Phil Coulson at this point. Go ahead.
Well, you got to remember something. He doesn't have relation. I mean, he's the smartest guy in the room and the wealthiest guy in the room. And you have to imagine. I mean, when you look at him, like when he was in Civil War, or when you look like when he's walking through the Expo Center in Iron Man 2, people are just gushing over him, and he doesn't consider that. And even Happy. I mean, we'll see this in Iron Man 3. Happy is well. We saw it in Iron Man 1. Happy really doesn't get a whole lot of good treatment either, but they were good friends too. So, I mean, it's, oh, hey, cool with the biddies.
Thank you. I didn't want to interrupt you were saying.
Oh, no, it's fine. But like, Tony doesn't have normal friendships until the Avengers, really. And so he builds up those things. And even then, he doesn't know how to be anything other than the jokester in a lot of cases until later on. I mean,
I feel like
honestly, Morgan breaks him. That's what I think really is the change for him.
And even then, he's still quippy and funny and like I'm smarter than everybody else. But I also feel like we're kind of like overlooking the fact that usually when smart people and like essentially he's already genius level. We know genius level people have a tendency to be very antisocial.
That's true.
They have a tendency to be very tunnel vision. And I feel like we're not giving that to Tony because he has all the classic signs of being like on the spectrum, but still functional because of how genius he is. But he's very like when he's at work, which is why he created a bajillion suits because he was at work and like that fear that that was put into him that we'll talk about during started in Avengers and continued into like Iron Man 3. But like for me, his turn in Avengers showed him what I don't think he thought he could do, and that was work with other people. That opened up the floodgates for him. It's one thing to be like, I create this suit to do things by myself. I work on this by myself. But to have other people question what a genius already knows, that takes a lot of humility to deal with, which he didn't handle it well. I can't agree to that because I'm not gonna like let him skate on that. But at the end, you could see that when they were all fighting together and Clint was like, hey, you got two this way. They can't bend corners this way. And Tony's like, well, dang, I didn't even notice that.
Roger that.
What else you got? Like what else you got? You know what I mean? He was starting to fall into the line. And then when they all came into a circle, he gave up command essentially
to Cap
and said, Cap, run it down.
Right.
Like
and Cap did good. Cap called out those orders perfectly. He fulfilled that role, which is funny because if you look back to the scrawny kid, you know, from Brooklyn, you don't expect that he had that in him, but that, you know, his journey got him there as well.
Well, he had all of World War II to learn his command. You know, I mean,
he's always been, even as a skinny kid, he's always been like, you know, I can make this. He's always been like Captain America, even as a skinny kid. He's always had like this right.
I'm just gonna say this because this is completely off topic, but if you think about it, could you imagine the headspace that Steve Rogers is in his mind, in his consciousness? He is probably only about maybe let's say 6 months to a year after World War II, and he's going into fight Avengers.
No, I know. I know it would be really odd. A man out of time would be a really strange, you know, phenomenon. It is hard for me to put myself in his shoes.
But if you think about it, though, would it? All he knew going down was how to fight, and then he woke up having to fight. I feel like that might have been the easiest transition. I think the only different transition is the gap in technology. I think that would have threw a little bit more. But he's a military man that went from the military to the military. Like,
yeah. I agree with that, but I just rewatched First Avenger, like I said, right before this show. I think I watched it like 3 days ago, and I think Captain America's arc is the most appealing and intriguing to me of all the arcs in the MCU, and it didn't used to be, mostly because literally the thing he says before he hits the water, hits the Atlantic, and he says straight up, I was supposed to have a date. I was supposed to go on a dance with a girl. Like that's what motivates Captain America, is that he doesn't want to be a soldier. He did his due diligence. He fought. He destroyed and won in World War II, and his reward was to go dance with that girl, and he never got it. He never, of course, we know ultimately what he gets, but he didn't get that. And so when we see him in Avengers, that's the chip that's riding on his shoulder. I think that he's still thinking about her, and of course, that's what we get in Age of Ultron when he gets woo from Scarlet Witch, we see him thinking exactly that.
He's been thinking about her since he woke up.
Right.
Like that's all he's about.
He probably thought about her in the bed. He was like, "Oh, did we go on a date last? Oh, this baseball game is not real. This is an old game." You know.
So
he visited her. So I mean,
on your thoughts of saying that that's why he went down. Can you say that he's selfish as well? That everything he has did up until this point was for a woman and not to really be a hero?
No, because what he puts wanting the woman aside to do the due diligence. He doesn't go back for the woman until it's all said and done, till the war is won.
Okay.
So he's decided to go back, and that's the appropriate time. So
actually, Smitty, I just wanted to throw back a question on you that you kind of threw on us.
Yeah, and honestly, if you think about it, when he did the date, it was kind of like trying to help him think that there would be something after because he knew he was going to die. Like he was convinced when he crashed he's going to die. I mean, as much as I love Tony, I mean, you think about Steve Rogers, like he doesn't like bullies. That's why he fought the war. It wasn't to become the super soldier. He didn't know what was going to happen after Erskine did what he did. He just wanted to help. And he felt like there was nothing better that he could do because if everyone else has to do it, he should be just right there with everybody else.
Nobody's baby has a really strange and great way of putting things.
See, nobody's baby gets it.
He just wants to smash. So with Tony and Avengers, I know we're going to get to the pivotal moment here in a minute when we start talking about the nuke, right? Because that's the laying on the wire part that actually Steve Rogers talks about. He says straight up, you're not the kind of guy that's going to lay on the wire. And a lot of Tony's actual flaws are brought up in this film very directly. The fact that he needs to go after Thor and fights him until Captain America steps in and goes, "Yo, children, are we done?" Because even Thor is a childish, god child.
Doth mother know you weareth her drapes?
I loved that scene.
That was my favorite scene.
That is still my favorite scene, I think, in the Avengers.
Like the top three together, like on screen for the first time.
Right.
So I think everybody's like favorite scene actually.
The second favorite is going to be when Hulk punches that thing in the face. I still jump up in my seat, and I've seen that movie like 100 times. So
I like the slow build. I like the fact that because they don't really tell you, like I don't really think they tell you up until that point that Mark Ruffalo's Hulk is Edward Norton's Hulk. That streamline is going to continue. I know they talk about it a little bit.
He mentions Harlem.
But to see him, I know. But to see him, like, I mean, that could be any Hulk. He always in Harlem. But to see him like look at Cap and go like, "That's my secret. Like, I'm always angry." And then he just slowly morphs into the Hulk. I was like, that was the moment that solidified for me that this was the same Hulk that they pulled over. Like, I know that they talked about it a little bit, but just seeing that was like, yes, because at the end he had control, so it makes sense.
Yeah.
He was
willing to embrace the monster.
Yeah. So to me, that's why I felt like a little bit that there was a regression. Just to get off topic just a little bit, there was a regression with that version of the Hulk because we know that he has control, and then somewhere along the way he loses control. Like, I'm just like, I need more, and because they didn't give us more story for him in the interim of the things that he did, it seems disconnected a little bit.
Well, if you think about it, I'm just going to kind of fast forward a little bit. Like, if you think about, okay, so up to this point, the Hulk has just been kind of this character that when he lost control, it came out, and then when we get to that battle in New York, he has this moment where he consciously changes into the Hulk. When we find him back in Avengers: Age of Ultron, there's a different conflict with Bruce Banner because specifically they have been doing missions to beat Hydra to find the scepter or find the scepter, and the entire time Banner now has to deal with the fact that he is consciously allowing the Hulk to come out to kill people, and he struggles with that. So I mean, as much as I would have loved to have had more in between, you kind of get it. It's a nice like balance of he struggled with letting the monster out, but then when he let the monster out, he's struggling with the aftermath. So yeah, I just had to say that.
I just feel like we're going against guys that don't care about who they kill in their past. I need you to get over it. But I get it. It's a character arc that they wanted to put him through. I just think I just think because they didn't have access to more for him, that's the best that they could do. And I just felt like, for me, it felt like a bit of a regression because you're killing people, just killing people. I don't know.
Yeah, but you
That's
gotta remember he's a scientist, and they only touch on it a little bit in Incredible Hulk, and we don't really see it with Mark Ruffalo during the storyline. But we find out later on that he didn't know he was working on the super soldier serum, and he was thinking he was doing something that would benefit people, and he was willing to sacrifice himself to see if it would work, and ends up becoming the Hulk, and goes through this. And so this man has been a person that's always wanted to help. I mean, even in the fact that when we see him, when Natasha first approaches him in India, he is trying to heal people.
Yeah.
He's doing what Bruce Banner does best, trying to help and make amends for the destruction that he's done, and which makes him similar to Tony a little bit, except for just not as cocky.
So I'm gonna die on this line of, if you kill people, they kill people. I don't see a problem. I'm gonna die on that line. It's fine. I'll die now.
Well, yeah, okay.
There are two connections. There are two connections to the Incredible Hulk film directly, and nobody's baby just mentioned one of them, and that is the deleted scene in Incredible Hulk actually shows the scene where he talks about the fact that he shoots himself and Hulk spits out the bullet. That's actually done in the film as a deleted scene. So you got to be like super fan.
No, it's in there.
Weirdo. It's not in the main movie. It's only in the.
It is in the main movie.
It's not.
It is. In Avengers, he says,
no, the mention of it is the scene itself is in the deleted scenes.
Oh,
of
yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Sorry, we were just miscommunication. So
the alternate opening
right.
of the
right, which I really like. I wish I could go in and choose which scenes were in a movie. Maybe they'll get to the point digitally where you can be like, I want this edited or this deleted scene in my movie version. If you're listening to Fandango and Voodoo, get on that. So. The other one is he literally turns to somebody and says, yeah, I kind of destroyed Harlem. And so he does directly reference the film and what he did. And if you look closely at the Incredible Hulk in all of the Avengers films, he has a scar right there on his chest from the Abomination giving him that jab. So there are a few, moments.
I'm just saying the one that hits me.
So
the one that hits me most.
Sorry, go ahead.
When he just. No, I'm just saying. I mean, I remember those. But I'm just saying that the one that hits me most is when he transforms at will, because nobody around him knows that he can do that.
Right.
So they're like, yo, we need you to get angry, because they only have a bit of information about him because he kept himself so secret and quiet that they just assume that he gets mad at any point. He's about to become the Hulk.
But that also means that on the carrier, he was doing it intentionally to some degree. He was already pissed off enough that he let himself get there, which means that what he did to Natasha wasn't exactly nice. The other side of that coin is if you watch the end of Incredible Hulk, they show that he has control, because they show him in the cabin and they show him breathing, and then his eyes go red intentionally. So they actually foreshadow that a little bit. So I was really stoked about that. Now that's just my
I think he has the ability to turn it on, but I don't think he has the ability to turn it on, but I don't think he has always complete control. I don't think that the helicarrier was intentional.
I don't think
I Loki played on that whole thing. The whole reason that Loki was doing it was to get Hulk to bust out, and that was
it was the scepter. Like, what's her name? Natasha figured out that he wanted to unleash the Hulk. And Bruce Banner dealing directly with the scepter, because it's the Mind Stone, and we figure out from Wanda that he can be influenced by that power. He got influenced, and then
just by grabbing it, right? Just by picking it up.
I think just by being in its presence, and then he happened to pick it up.
They ask him to put it down. They're like, "Could you put the scepter down?" Because he gets so angry, he picks it up.
Okay. No, I know he picks it up, but I think he was already being influenced. I think when everybody came in and they were all arguing back and forth, it powered it up more, and he got even more influenced to the point where he did pick it up like subconsciously. Right. And then like when he fell and he got Barton blew up the helicarrier, he fell through. That pain triggered the Hulk to come out. Right. He tried to fight it,
So I'm gonna give you an alternate view of that scene with the Mind Stone with the scepter. We know from Endgame that all of the Infinity Stones carry low levels of gamma radiation. I think that in a sense the gamma radiation being in a close proximity to Bruce Banner was attracting him and also giving him giving him a little bit less control over the Hulk at that point. And so when they do have that attack and he falls through the floor, his defenses of how he controls the Hulk are already down at that point. So I don't necessarily think it was the Mind Stone controlling him. I think it was the gamma radiation that was influencing him. Because I think Loki, he didn't have to do much. He just had to get gamma radiation to that guy to kind of help him, give a little jump start to Hulk him out. And then with their already, their character issues with each other was just enough to kind of set him over the edge.
I like what Nobody's Baby just said. You got to consider that the way Banner was brought on to the Avengers was in a really shady way where she lied to him and then was actually surrounding him. And so there's a bit of like disconnect with his trust for her there in the first place, and S.H.I.E.L.D. in general, like why he had a lot of distrust for everybody other than Tony. Tony's the only one that gave him real information. He gave him what S.H.I.E.L.D. was doing. So
remember, she said that they've been watching him for a minute. They were like, we've known where you've been. We just left you alone, and then we left other people from messing with you. So it's like, so this whole time he's like, he thought he was like being uncovered. He thought he was being secret, and this whole time somebody's been watching him. I'm pretty sure that wasn't helpful for him as well. But I think his relationship with Tony kind of changed that, because Tony's the only person that treated him like a person instead of like this walking bomb that could go off.
Right.
Yep.
Right.
She bribes a kid to play on his better nature. Exactly.
Which makes me also more angry about Age of Ultron, because I don't think they should have had a relationship like they did. I'm just gonna say.
No, it doesn't work with what they laid out, other than the fact that she was the first contact, and they did start to form a relationship, just barely one though.
Yeah.
I think what happened is she formed. Honestly, didn't mind that relationship because, as messed up as it was, she was his first point of contact. But also, I think that she got to know the man, and then that got the beast to like her in a certain way to get her to trust her. So for her just getting to know, because she said it herself that like he doesn't want this power, he doesn't want to be in this position, and for her that's attractive because all she's been around are men that want to take advantage. The way she was raised, the way she was grew up, to see somebody who has this power but wants to like step away from it, I think it showed her something different. So I like their connection. I wish they could have played on it more. But because my whole thing is this: don't do it if you're not gonna really do it correctly. And I would have rather it not be there. I wouldn't have minded her still being able to want to calm him. I wouldn't have minded that, because I felt like Natasha, like anything that's like against her or against her nature, I'm trying to figure out a way to say it. I think she fights to figure it out. I think she fights to understand it. So it would make sense to me that like everybody's afraid of the Hulk. She was afraid initially when he like yelled and like played her and she pulled her gun out and all that type of stuff, like in the beginning of Avengers. But I think her figuring him out is what she would do, because that's who she is. Like, she's the one you send into Loki to figure him out, right? I feel like that's part of what she does. So they could have took away all the flirting because they didn't do much with it. Even in what was it? Infinity War, when they were like, hey, and that's all you saw. Murder, she wrote. That's all you saw. They said hello to each other, and that's all you gave the people. Okay, thank you. Nothing. Thanks.
Well, what was interesting about Natasha, if you really think about it, I really think a lot of people miss the interpretation of what it means when it says, I have read my ledger. I don't think she's talking about like, I have to make amends for stuff because of the guilt that I feel for what I did. She has read her ledger because she knows that S.H.I.E.L.D. knows what she's done, that if anything were ever to come out of what she's done, she would be a war criminal in multiple countries. Even when you think Winter Soldier, she is afraid of the information getting out. And even Robert Redford's character, I forget his name now.
Mm-hmm.
We got you.
Yeah. So he even looks at her when he says, "Are you sure you want all of these secrets coming out? Because even yours will." And you saw a pause on her, and then she finally turned it around. She had to make that conscious decision. She was okay with the world knowing. And when she was in that congressional hearing at the end of Winter Soldier, that was her coming to terms with the fact that she's, it's out, because she never mentions Red in her ledger again at that point. It's never about making amends, because it's like, okay, I'm out. Everyone knows who I am, what I've done. And so I don't think when Loki was playing remorse, like playing on her remorse, trying to make her feel guilty and trying to break her, he misread what she was saying as well. And so that's how she manipulated him.
Okay, but I'm confused because the red in her ledger is the things that she's done that she regrets.
It's the things that she's done that are wrong, but I don't think how she responds to them. I don't think she has trauma dealing with those things. I think she was programmed, like she's still, you remember, she's still a Red Room programmed individual. She just turned and Clinton changed her. But I think she doesn't have the regret, like let's say Banner does in Age of Ultron for killing people. He suffers from PTSD. He's kind of like a war veteran coming back from like the Middle East and having to deal with, you know, the people that he's killed that he never intended to. And then you have Natasha, who's a trained killer, and she's like, well, that's just Saturday, but at the same time, you got dirt on me. It's kind of like a burn notice type thing. So
I get what you're saying. So I want to say something that's going to get us back on the Tony argument and get a little controversial here. I would argue that most of Tony's actions in the Avengers movie and everything leading up to the Avengers movie are knee-jerk reactions. And I don't think that they're necessarily heroic, because just doing the right thing in the right moment, it doesn't necessarily make you a hero. It does make you a good person. And I won't argue that I think he grows into a far better person. I will concede that here in episode 1 of this argument. That's not my point. My point is far more nuanced in the difference between just being a good person and being an actual hero, right? Captain America, not necessarily Captain America level, because I think you can still be a hero and not be quite, that bar, right? But all of his approaches to everything in Avengers are knee-jerk. Even his discovery of where Loki is going to do this whole presentation of taking over the world is because of a quick conversation where he realizes this is his own ego that's guiding Loki in some ways. He's going to do this in such a way that he's flaunting Stark's ego to the world and showing that, haha, I'm going to do this right in Iron Man's backyard, right on his front porch, literally. That's how far Loki manipulated the Avengers, and I think a lot of that was the hubris of Tony Stark and Nick Fury, if you want to get right into it. Nick Fury was so concerned about putting the Avengers together that they shouldn't have been messing with the Tesseract in the first place, but that's a whole nother argument.
Are you done talking?
Yeah, he's done talking.
I wasn't sure. I don't know. I don't.
Okay, I'm gonna go take some time to think through this. Okay, here's the thing. Yes, a lot of what Tony does is a knee-jerk reaction. It is also an individual who is trying his best to do the right thing, but stay true to himself in any sense. Is it all right? No, it's not all right. He makes lots of mistakes. Tony is a flawed hero. It does not mean that he's not a hero. Tony is doing what he can, and we find out later on that he's going to do what he can to, progress others to do better as well. He knows he's not that great. In Spider-Man: Homecoming, he even says, I want you to be better than me. And so Tony doesn't think he is, I'm going to say a really old catchphrase. He's not the bee's knees when it comes to being a hero. But he also doesn't like being challenged that his intentions aren't in the right direction. When we go back to the scene with Coulson, when he gives him the information, as soon as he sees what he's being presented with, you can see a demeanor change within Tony. Tony realizes there's a problem that really needs his help. It's not a consulting thing. When Tony goes into fighting Loki, he's got his cavalier attitude and everything else, but he gets in there and he acknowledges the other hero in the room, Cap. When he goes after Thor, who takes Loki, it's this idea of he's got to make a quick reaction. He does. Steve has not earned his respect at that point, and so he knows his dad's talked about this guy, but he just thinks that he's old and outdated. Steve needed his help before, and whereas Loki was one godlike character that Steve could not take on his own, now there are two, and Iron Man just goes to respond. Tony, where Tony struggles is he struggles to understand that he does need others. That's where he struggles. He doesn't understand that he needs to consult with others, to get other people's opinions, to really work in cooperation, and that doesn't happen until later. That whole fight scene between them, you know, Bruce is more understanding of what is going on along with Tony. They both distrust Shield. They both think that they're ulterior motives. They both can't trust, the situation because they know they're not being told the whole story. Steve is blindly trusting everything that's going on, and though Tony is maybe not completely right in everything that he says or does, he's trying to find the answers. Whereas a lot of like Steve was just taking things at face value until Tony brought him up to speed of, you really think you want to trust everybody that's going on? Just the fact that they're talking about clean energy when they know that that's what Tony's going for right now is the biggest red flag for all of it. So that's just my kind of jumping in there.
No, you're good. You're good.
Okay.
Lala?
No, I just want to know how other people would deal with being in a situation in which only you could help. Right? It's a lot of things that happen in the Avengers that if Tony wasn't there, that helicarrier would have been down on the ground. Right? So I feel like even though he makes knee-jerk decisions for the most part, I feel like it's good intentions behind him. I don't think he does anything just to say like, hey, I did it. Be proud of me, pat me on the back, because I think he's learning from past mistakes. I agree with Marvelite that he's trying to figure out how to work in this group of people when his whole life, only his word meant everything. He say, go do this, people went and go do it. He would say, I want to go buy this, or I want to go make this, and he would go do it. Now there's a tribunal that he has to be around that he has to listen to. And some of these people have better ideas than him. It doesn't hurt that one of the people that people listen to the most is the one that his father probably always talked about when he was a child. So essentially Cap was like the big idealistic brother that he never had, and now has been made flesh in front of him, and he can see why his father said the things that he said about him. So then it's like another slap in the face from a father that he felt never loved him again. So it's like now you're working on not only trying to prove to yourself that you can do this because he is a man amongst gods for the most part, and you're around other people. They might be humans, but they live this life for the most part. They go out and fight other not entities essentially, but they go out and they do like missions and they coordinate with each other and they work together. He's essentially like the odd man out in this scenario because he's jumping from being a playboy to being somebody that a team has to count on, when in all honesty, all he had to do was count himself. So I feel like I agree with Lady Crossheart. I feel like Tony is very misunderstood in that sense. And I feel like everything he's done is to be essentially a better person, because how would you react in a situation where your smarts is what people need to get out of it? So you're always going to try to think 10, 15 steps ahead. You're always going to try to be like, okay, I can see the problem before it happens, which is why I think when he touched the bridge of the helicarrier is why he hacked the system immediately, because he can't be in the dark if they need his assistance.
But doesn't that
And
okay, I love that you said that, because doesn't his need to never be in the dark lead to Ultron? Doesn't his need to never be in the dark, doesn't that ego of his lead to more disasters than it does heroic acts? I mean, doesn't he get more people killed because of his hubris, because of that ego, than he does save people? Sure, he prevents New York from getting destroyed, but then, 2 years later, he gets a city, he drops a city on the world. And I know he didn't do it, but he kind of did, because he built a robot that did. So.
But I'm sure that he doesn't get half the hate.
Who doesn't?
Banner was in that with him.
And I also think Tony wasn't successful. I don't think Tony was able to build Ultron. I think Tony was on the process of working Ultron. The Mind Stone created Ultron, because he kept saying, we kept failing. There was no success. It was not working.
Right,
And
but
Even
who
Vision
Ultron
screwed
created
around
it.
with it in the
Even-
first place? Who started playing with
But
powers
even-
beyond their ken, beyond their ability? Yeah. Tony Stark.
Shield started the Shield opened up the
Project
floodgates
Insight.
for Shield opened up the floodgates for Loki to even enter this world. Like, because even Thor said, though them dealing with the Tesseract sent out a beacon that Earth was ready for something more than what it usually was ready for. So if we're going to blame anybody for any of this, we're going to blame Nick Fury, or we're going to blame Shield for dealing with things that
Well,
they
then you have to
honestly
blame Howard Stark.
you can blame Thor. You can blame Thor because Nick Fury didn't even have the idea if Thor would have landed in New Mexico and started this whole shebangaboo.
Well, then you can
Of
blame
not
Odin because Thor wouldn't have done what he did had Odin not taken that child from the Frost Giants. So
Yes,
really,
and
let's
Odin
just
is the
blame
jerk,
we'll
comic
just go
books
back
and
and blame
MCU.
Loki. We'll blame Loki. No, I think it's all Howard Stark's fault because if he had not pulled the Tesseract out of the ocean, we wouldn't have any of these problems. But we also wouldn't have Iron Man. So
So I'm just saying, I mean, my whole thing is scientists are going to scientists.
yes, they are.
Scientists are going to scientists, and at the core of Tony Stark, he is a scientist. His whole thing is that a lot of people go into something with good intentions, and sometimes they fail for the most part. And did he make a gross, judgment and error? Yes, he did. But that judgment and error gave us vision, and vision is a powerful ally. But everything that Tony has done, even in Age of Ultron, Avengers, is to make the world better. And maybe he tried to.
I'm
Maybe
not
he tried
arguing
to.
against that. I'm not arguing against that.
Maybe he tried to speed up the process, but I don't think that makes him a bad person from trying to make it so that none of them had to always be the first line of defense in a world that's continually evolving with creatures and beings of power that he can't even imagine. Just being, because at the end of it, he might step into like this can and become Iron Man, but he's a flesh and blood human being that is freaked out just like anybody else. So what he does is he uses his brain to figure out how he could continue to support, how he could continue to save.
Now, think of it this way: he created Iron Legion to do what needed to do to prevent collateral damage. He also created we also find later on that he created damage control, and he worked with the government to do and like he actually had a recovery fund that actually helped deal with the aftermath of Avengers type events, because he knew that you can't protect the world without there being some collateral damage and finding some way to protect it.
Yes, but
I would dare say that Tony, when he creates Ultron, it was a discussion between him and Bruce Banner, but it only became an actual drive when Scarlet Witch gave him that vision and altered his mind.
No, and that's something we're going to need to get into next week, because there's a lot. Ultron is going to be one of the thicker elements that's going to lead kind of down both of these paths. And I do want to reiterate, I'm not saying that Tony Stark is a bad person. I'm not saying that. I'm not arguing that. I'm trying to make a line in the sand between good person and hero. And I'm trying to make a distinction between, you can be all right, you can be a good person and try for the best things and still end up on the right side of history, if you will. But does that make you an actual hero?
What's your definition of a hero? I always say this because your definition and my definition might be two different definitions.
That's a fair point, but I did want to address something before I address that, because this has been nagging at me. There's been a couple of interesting comments in the chat that we've kind of neglected, and I wanted to at least hear Lady Crossheart's. She says also, question, does Batman pay the Justice League salary? I would argue no, he does not. Because everyone getting on my case because he did not sponsor the Avengers. Like, did everyone miss that it's Nick Fury that's hired them and not Tony Stark? I agree with that, Lady Crossheart. It's not Iron Man's responsibility to pay Sam Wilson for, let's say, because that's where we hear a lot of that, in the more modern era of the MCU, because he's trying to help bankroll the team doesn't mean he's actually, hired everyone. He's hired no one. He's still a consultant and works for Nick Fury. So if anybody should be paying the Avengers, it should be the government. But then we can get into Civil War.
Shield should be taking the brunt of that payment, all that money, for the most part.
Yeah.
Could he help? Could he create a fund? Sure, but it's not his responsibility.
Right. I mean, mainly he housed them and provided living for them. It didn't necessarily mean they had to pay their salary.
Right, he made
Yeah.
them a training facility and got the barracks and gave them weapons and suits and like I think he did enough. Like I don't think he needs to put food on the table too. Um, Tax write off. That's a fair point. But again, would people start to try to join the Avengers just to get on a nice program? I don't know. That could be interesting, and they kind of go into that stuff in the comics. With like the kids at the beginning of Civil War that are the reality stars. I digress. So when Tony goes into the tube to launch the nuke, he has to what?
He said the tube. You mean the portal?
The portal. Sorry, yeah.
Wormhole
Tube. That's what I was thinking. Tube worm. My brain just said tube. It's fine. So when he goes into the portal to launch the nuke, which he has that split again, knee-jerk reaction, and I get it. This is not one I blame him for. This is a big one. Everybody in New York's going to die, and probably Jersey as well, because of the wind. So he has to do something. But when he gets up there, it's weird. It's almost like he knows he's not going to die because he has the two jetpacks that break off and actually give him momentum backward, which is fantastic. And he thought about having those and what they would do. So it makes me wonder if he hoped the hole would close before he got there. Just to end it all. As a hero. He wanted to die a hero. And since he wanted to die a hero, he didn't get his wish until the end of where we're headed. Which means I ultimately think his death was selfishness.
I don't think he wanted to die a hero.
I don't think he wanted to die. I don't think he wanted to die. I thought he was in a situation where he was the only one close enough to do something, and with the type of power to do something, because we can see that it takes Thor a long time to get that hammer together so he can fly. So I mean, it's I felt like he went up with the intention of making sure that New York didn't blow up, but I don't think I don't really feel like I felt like it was like a lose-lose situation. Like either he was going to make it back or he wasn't. I felt like he was ready to cut the line if he needed to, but I don't think he went up there with the intentions to die, because we figure out that every time Tony comes up against something, he creates a suit of something that was similar to what he went through. So like this suit powered down in space. By the time we get to Infinity War, he creates a suit that can deal with being in space, so that he would never have to go through that again. So I feel like it was he had good intentions. It just like happened that way. I don't think he went in there knowing that he was going to die.
One. In Iron Man 1, he never had the intention of dying when he was fighting Obadiah Stane. He figured he could get him up there, get him disabled, and he could stop Obadiah by overloading the arc reactor. But the arc reactor was only brought up until he realized he couldn't beat Obadiah with his tech because he was losing power. And at that point, he was settled with the fact that he was going to have to die. Iron Man 2, we see no intention of him dying for what happened. He was dying, so he was trying to make amends he was trying to make arrangements by getting Rhodey with the suit and all that other stuff. Avengers, if he would have been like, oh, this is my chance to die for this, then I think it would not have been Jarvis telling him to call Pepper. I think he would have already had her ready.
Yeah.
Yes, but he's selfish, so he wasn't thinking about her.
But if that's what we want to say, then Captain America First Avenger, when Captain America lands in the water, he intended to die at that point, because we get a deleted scene in Endgame where Rhodey is specifically asking, why did you just jump out of the ship or out of the plane? Because it's that question of, okay, well, I gotta fight bullies, and now I have to die a hero. Tony never wants that. In fact, you see, he constantly tries to put those things in. The suit stopped working. The Hulk had to grab him in Avengers because he was free falling. Which
I would argue makes him more of a hero than Tony, but that's just me.
It's just because you like the Hulk.
I'm kidding.
What does Tony Stark do for Peter Parker's suit? He puts a parachute in. He's constantly trying to do the next thing that is going to either sustain his life or be useful, because Tony is only as good as he is alive. and it's only when he's willing to die in something. Well, he's willing to die somewhere. I don't want to do spoilers for stuff like that. I went through the alert up, but
I
like
literally called
it's
this the
when
Great
he's
Tony
told.
debate, so people should come in expecting that we're going to
Yeah.
totally destroy these films.
So yeah, we're gonna just say spoiler alert. I mean, if you have at this point, if you haven't watched Endgame, I don't know what you've been doing for the last quarantine. But honestly, Tony doesn't want to die even there. He's sustaining. He's like, hey, Pepper. And it's when she finally says, it's okay, you can rest. Because what is Tony doing? Tony cannot rest because he's trying to make sure that he can undo anything that's happened that either he was a part of or what he's been afraid of. He's trying to make things better and protect the ones he loves and protect those around him.
Right.
And
Which makes him a great dad, makes him a great friend, makes him a great husband. Well, fiance. I don't know if they ever get married. But does it make him a hero?
Yes. Dads are heroes. Dads are heroes.
I mean, I'm a dad. You're a dad. We can talk about that.
Yeah, friends can be heroes. Well, hopefully dads are heroes. I should take that back.
There are plenty of villain dads.
Yeah, not all fathers are heroes, but all dads are heroes. We'll just say it that way. He could have been he may have been your father, but he definitely wasn't your daddy. But honestly, like you can be the hero of the story. It doesn't mean that you're perfect, and it doesn't mean that you always got it right. People that persevere even over their own character flaws and still strive to do better and do right, those are heroes.
Especially somebody with a conflicted backstory as Tony Stark, who could
exactly
the money that he has, he could have easily tucked himself away and say, leave me alone. I don't want to be bothered with this. But the moment Nick Fury rejected him, for the most part, I feel like Tony made it a mission to not only better himself, but to try to better the world. And yes, that could be a little selfish, but something has to come from something. Something has to be the catalyst. Bill Coulson was the catalyst for everybody in the Avengers to get their shit together, for the most part. Because before his death, everybody was scattered. Everybody needed something. Tony needed something to become a bit of a better person, because he was still a douchebag, which I enjoy, just to make it so that he could be the person who cut the wire. Because he was true. Because I'm going to be honest, Captain America was correct. Tony lived a life of, I think, fear and regret, and he did not want to die. But when he's seen all these people, when he's seen like these aliens, when he's seen what Loki was doing, when he's seen everything that was happening in New York, I think something in him changed, especially because of Pepper as well. She's a big catalyst for him. Pepper's the reason that he wants to put a suit of armor around the world for the most part. Also, that vision that he had of all his friends / his family, the first real family I think he's ever had, died when he could have done something about it, because he was the mastermind behind all of this. I think it does make him a hero. Because if he would have just sat back and did nothing, then that's not a hero. A hero does something.
So according to the dictionary, a hero is a person who is admired or idolized for courage, outstanding achievements, or noble qualities. And I think where my brain sticks is the noble qualities. When I think of a hero, I think of Captain America. I think of somebody who does it for selfless reasons because it's the right thing to do. While Iron Man does it because it's either a knee-jerk reaction or convenient for him and what's best for him. And this was my argument. This actually goes to the crux of my argument that I made the video on TikTok about, is about Morgan. And I don't want to talk too much about this because we're going to get into this in the next couple of weeks. But my biggest argument isn't, like I said, in these first 3 films. I'm trying to, kind of see if there's stuff here to, glom onto and add to the later argument, and trying to review these movies and just talk with you guys and have fun and playing a little bit of devil's advocate just for the fun, making it fun. But my biggest issue will become when we get to the Infinity War section. So
I'm gonna just jump in here real quick with something, and I know this is fast forwarding a little bit in time. We're gonna get on this later on, but I just want to read some words, and I want you to tell me what the intent of this person is when they say this. Everyone wants a happy ending, right? But it doesn't always roll that way. Maybe this time. I'm hoping that if you play this back, it's in celebration. I hope families are reunited. I hope we get it back, and something like a normal version of the planet has been restored. If there ever was such a thing, God, what a world, universe now. If you'd have told me 10 years ago that we weren't alone, let alone, to this extent, I mean, I wouldn't have even been surprised. But come on, the epic forces of dark and light have come into play. For better or for worse, that's the reality Morgan's going to have to find a way to grow up in. So I thought I'd record this greeting in case of of an untimely death on my part. I mean, not that death at any time isn't untimely. This Tidal Trouble thing that we're going to try and pull off tomorrow, it's got me scratching my head about the survivability of it all. Then again, that's the hero gig. Part of the journey is the end. I mean, the fact that he is willing to understand, he was willing to go into this knowing that there could possibly be consequences, but it was worth trying to save people.
Noble.
I like it, except there's one thing. A hero doesn't call himself a hero.
But did he call himself a hero?
He says the hero
So
gig.
that's
He's
the hero
referring
gig.
to himself as a hero, even in that little bit of ego there. That's what bothers me about Stark, is there's always that little bit of what about me? And I think that's where I fall into this category of, is he a good person? Yes. Is he a good Avenger? Yes. Did he do good things for the world? Yes. I'm not going to argue any of those. But is he an actual hero, or was he so selfish that he caused an upheaval that created a shockwave of forever problems in the Marvel universe because of his decision not to hope that he could have his baby girl again with his wife? That's it. That's the only reason. That's why he didn't do it.
But see, I feel
You
like
can't do that.
but I feel like exactly. Like I feel like you can't, because here's the thing: nobody thought about time travel until Ant-Man came and was like, "Yo, I was sitting in this thing. It felt like 5 minutes. It was 5 years for y'all. Like maybe we can use it to do something." And even though he had objections to it at first because he didn't know what could lead from it, it's unfair for him to play God in that sense, because that's exactly what Thanos is doing. So you might as well put him in the same line as Thanos, because you're asking him to play God with not only a life that has been born, but any other life that has been born since these 5 years. It's not right for him to have that power. But since he figured out a way that they can go back and fix things, but not ruin what has already been created during this time, I felt like that was a nice bridge in connecting what was and what is. But also, I feel like he's still noble, even though he's saying the hero gig, because at the end of the day, Tony Stark is still Tony Stark. He is still that lost little boy who is still trying to grow up. There are certain things, certain traumas in your life that you're never going to fully get over. Ever. There's still going to be little bits and pieces of you. It's a little narcissistic, or there's that wants a little bit of that patting on the back. Because I feel like everybody expects that. So to say that there's still not nobility in that, I still feel like it's still nobility in that.
Steve Rogers saved the soldiers that were captured by Hydra only when he found out that Bucky was part of the group. Steve Rogers also, even though he said, I'm not really a hero, most of those guys probably aren't even married, he didn't stop her from kissing him, the girl in the the SSR. So there are some things of any person that could be said, okay, they're living the high life, or they're accepting the fact that people look at them this way. But it's interesting. Tony doesn't call himself a hero in that statement. He says that's the hero gig. I mean, everyone in the world is, what are the Avengers? Earth's mightiest heroes. And he even says it in the first Avengers. So there is this thing. Well, yes, can you really, if you can't call Tony Stark a hero, can you really call any of them a hero? The Guardians of the Galaxy call themselves the Guardians of the Galaxy. Who declared that they could be the Guardians of the Galaxy?
Their little
Just
ego minds did. That's who. Star-Lord.
So exactly. When you have Steve Rogers, the points that I said before. I mean, if you want to state that there is anybody in the MCU that is a hero based on those terms, you've got Hawkeye and you've got Ant-Man. Because
I disagree.
Ant-Man just is there to help. He wants to take care of his family. You have Hawkeye, who is just doing his job, and he doesn't like taking credit for any of the stuff. And he does take a dark road. But I mean, think about it. I mean, all of the other heroes, or I would also say maybe Bruce Banner. The Hulk can be a hero under your definitions because he's the he's the tragic guy who doesn't really want to be there, but he's willing to give himself over to the beast for the better good of everyone else. But then you really can't call a lot of the Avengers heroes in that case.
Okay, I want to make a point about Captain America based upon what you said. So let's take what you said about him and the going to get Bucky, and one might argue that going after your best friend, even if it means you might die, is selfless in its own nature, and then bringing other guys back is a added bonus. But I get what you're saying. You're doing exactly what I was doing a little bit ago, but we don't see him full-fledged become the hero we know him to be until Infinity War and Endgame, because he can't move the hammer even in Ultron. He does a little bit, but that's because of those things. He doesn't full-fledged become the Captain America hero we want him to until he's selflessly fighting in Endgame.
I mean, it doesn't negate the things he's done.
I'm just saying, I'm playing off your argument, Tony, is all I'm doing. I'm saying if those things are true and that's why he's not a hero, then we do get to see him redeem those. I don't think Tony could touch that hammer.
But that doesn't, but I feel like that's not the only thing that makes you worthy, right? The fact that he took on a deviant / eternal, and he's just a man in a box, and decided to snap and like essentially kill himself, which I'm pretty sure he didn't think he was going to survive that.
He had to know he wasn't. I'll give you that.
To me, that redeems anything that he has done up until that point. That's just me though, because he didn't have to do that. He didn't have to make that gauntlet off of his own technology in the sense that he could easily take those stones if he needed to, or make it so that he could snap. Like, there's a lot that Tony, being as smart as he is, didn't need to do. But also I feel like sometimes what makes you worthy, I feel like sometimes is clarity, because Vision was brand new born. He could carry the hammer because he didn't have any type of life experience that clouded him in the sense of not being worthy.
You're saying a toddler could pick up the hammer? Not a toddler, but a newborn?
I feel like a newborn could move the hammer. I really do.
I like that. That's a fair point. It's innocent.
That'd be an awesome Thor.
You know what I really wish we could get, and this is so an aside, but I wish we could get just a stint of Frog Thor.
Yes.
Because it's legitimate canon, and I think it would be awesome. Okay, well, we have gone way over on time because we were supposed to go for 2 hours, but we had to know that this was going to go longer than that. Let's do our... I know we didn't really talk about the movie that much. We actually are talking much more about Tony, but that's kind of the point of these episodes. So, but give your assessment of Avengers. I think I went first. Lala, you should go first this time, I think, because Tony went first on Iron Man 2.
Okay. Avengers is my favorite MCU film. Because I was super excited to see all of them together. I was super excited to see all these different personalities meld, because I'm a character-driven person. Plots are great. I love a good plot too, but I love characters. So, I'm gonna give Avengers a 9. I'll give Avengers a 9 because, like I said, I'll never give anything 10. The highest I'll go is 9.5. But I'll still give Avengers a 9 because Josh Whedon just took away 0.5 points for me. But I'll give it a 9 because it was everything I thought it could be. It melded everybody's personalities so good. It had some great jokes in it, and I still feel like to this day you can find some stuff in it that you haven't found before.
I agree.
So, yeah.
Tony, what you got?
Okay, so it's extremely rewatchable. I mean, I don't forgive the fact of the director, but honestly, I think it by itself, not just talking about the Tony Stark story, but it was the first time that we got a movie of this stature. When you think of like iconic like sequels and trilogies and things, or movie journeys, you think of like The Lord of the Rings. You knew that they were going to be multiple parts. Star Wars, you knew that there was more to the story of that. But Marvel intended to make something that we've only seen in comic books happen, and they did it in a way that, it wasn't maybe necessarily believable, but it was fantastic, and you related and you liked the characters, and they fed off of each other well. And honestly, you think about the friendships. The coolest thing was when they were talking about when they were on the set of Avengers, Phil Coulson was asked, or not Phil Coulson, Clark Gregg was asked what was his favorite thing about filming Avengers, and he said that there was like this group chat that was going on, and um, Chris Evans was the one that kind of led like the group outings and stuff because they all became very close friends, and you knew it was time to go party when Chris Evans tweeted or texted out to the group, "Avengers Assemble." And the camaraderie that was built and the mythos that kind of got picked up from the Marvel comics, I give it a 10. It's always going to be a 10 for me. I love that film, and I always will love that film.
Same.
I agree. And I actually, we'll touch on that Whedon guy one time. And I think from here on out, if his stuff comes up in our streams, we can just skip over him and talk about the 14,999 other people that work on these films, because they all deserve their damn due credit, because the Avengers wouldn't have happened without the set directors, without the cinematographers, without the gaffers and the grips and the keys and all those folks that make these movies possible. You got good audio. There was somebody whose arms hurt at the end of the night every night because you got good audio. And I think we deserve to give those people some respect. So yes. And I know you guys agree with me. So that being said, yeah, he did a good job and he's a good writer, but just because you're an asshole doesn't mean you don't write well. And it doesn't mean I'm not going to love all this stuff. I went through all my stuff, and a lot of the stuff I own is his stuff. And it pisses me off because half of my collection between film and comic books and everything is his. So I've had to come to terms, and I have. So I've just
I got Buffy stuff. I got Angel stuff. Dollhouse. I got Serenity.
Yep.
Listen, man, I dude's a douchebag, but I'ma still enjoy this stuff because he's just not the be all end all of these things. There's actors and writers and background and people that put a lot of love and heart into this. So like, oh yeah, for sure.
Hi guys, I'm gonna run a prediction real quick. Just whichever gets voted on more, will award to whatever. But this is gonna be the chat giving their opinion about everything. So there's gonna be two choices: Tony Stark is a hero, or Tony Stark is not a hero up to this point. So if you guys want to go ahead and give your opinion, that's gonna pop up there real quick, and then once we get close to the end, we'll go ahead and choose which one.
You should keep me out of this poll because I can literally put as many points as I want into it.
Oh yeah, we can't. We should not. We should not participate. Only the people in chat can.
I just thought about it. I was like, I'm gonna vote. Oh wait, no, I should not do that. I can make it.
That evil laugh. That evil laugh. Listen, you cannot vote.
Oh, that's fair.
Yeah, I've been thinking about watching that. Me and my friend have been thinking about watching that.
Oh, that was fast. It closed so fast.
What the what? Oh, I think everybody voted. Let's see here.
We got 2 votes for 100%. He is a hero. Well, that gives me 2 weeks to sway those opinions. All right, here we go.
What about you? What's your voting, Smitty?
As far as Avengers, as far as my rating?
Yes.
So it's a 10. I mean, it's the first superhero compilation film we've ever gotten on a level that was worth getting. Elektra might have showed up in the Daredevil movie, but I don't count that. And things like that. So for me, this is a solid film. I get Hulk in the way I wanted to get him, but it's just, it's never enough Hulk, honestly, for me. I think if you added up his screen time for the actual Incredible Hulk character, I think he's got maybe like 14 total minutes in the entire MCU or something. It's a really low number. And so I get, frustrated with that. But the film is solid, great lines, great cinematography. We get to see the helicarrier for the first time. And I'll tell you, when that thing lit up on the screen, when I saw this movie in theaters, I jumped out of my seat. I was like, they did it. They actually did the helicarrier. I didn't think they would. And they did. And they made it work for the MCU.
I'll give them a chance. Only 2 people voted.
Oh, that's fair.
There is a cross between, because of Joss Whedon, he did Avengers and Angel. There's a cross between Avengers and Angel that I caught one day.
So it's a scene. Age of Ultron one?
Huh?
The Age of Ultron one?
No, the first Avengers.
There is? Because I know there's one in the second one. Go ahead. I'm curious about this one.
Yeah. So in the first one, there's when Coulson dies, he talks about conviction. There is an episode in the 5th season of Angel where a villain gives the same speech to Angel. He was like, "You're gonna lose because you don't have conviction," and it was a bad guy saying it to the good guy, and then in this one, you have the good guy saying it to the bad guy. So I was like, "That's pretty dope." I was
I
like,
like
"Look at
that.
that."
I like that. In the second Avengers movie in Age of Ultron, there's actually a moment where Thor is going through his like trying to figure out, what's going on with the greater universe thing, that thread where he disappears from the Avengers for a little while, and he's in his flashback sequence, and they actually show a wall with 3 statues on it, and it's a wolf, a ram, and a heart.
That's dope. Yeah,
And of course, only Angel fans are going to get that.
yeah, that's cool.
So anyway, that being said, did the other vote go through here so that we can?
I think so. Yeah.
So Joker NYC went in with like 838 vote stubs for not a hero. So it's 1% versus 99 not a hero.
That flipped.
Well, there's only 3 people voting right now. I don't know.
A lot of people when they're watching our channel. Okay, so 2 people are you guys. So that's 2 people watching. One of them you said might have been your wife. There's another one, and then other people watch or listen, but they don't pay attention to the chat. They're just listening to us talk, more like a podcast. So there's that element. So the predictions are fun, but we only have 2 or 3 like active chatters most of the time right now.
Yeah, so I'll have to give it to Salty Dog this time. So we're torn between 2 votes. It's 1 for and 1 against.
Yep, it's okay.
Seems pretty split. That's what I like to think of it, is it's split.
Yeah,
makes it fun.
It does.
It's a good discussion, and I think ultimately we say this way: the MCU needs to have Iron Man. You can have your opinions of him, and I think the world has opinions of him. I mean, when you look at Sokovia, in Age of Ultron, they depict the Iron Man in the graffiti with guns in his hands, like he's the oppressor.
Well, look at the way they treat the Iron Legion. They treat them like crap. They throw an acid on them, and that's actually something. I'm glad you brought that up, because that's going to be kind of my lead-in on the next episode, because we're going to talk about Iron Man 3 and then go right into Ultron. And I think as we get into Ultron and Civil War, we're going to start delving into stuff that I'm really talking about. But anyway, 3 minutes to vote. Is it still going? Oh, it is.
No, it should be done. Or is it?
No, I see the ticker bar, and it's taking its time.
Surely should have done 1 minute.
Oh, switch off.
I really wish you guys could hear these sounds. I think next time, Lala, we should try to set up the Zoom and see if you guys can hear these sounds through the Zoom, because that might make the show even better. Talking about my movie sounds that I added to the stream. I think that'd be fun. Say it again.
Oh, I said sounds okay to me.
Okay. That being said, we are basically done. We're just waiting for this prediction to end, and then I don't know if there's anybody to raid tonight. Let me look. I do enjoy raiding. I think it's fun. Wheezy's on. We'll raid Wheezy. So you guys let me know when that finishes. I'll get this rolling. How do I get rid of this? I don't want to see the details. There we go. So the movies next week are going to include Iron Man 3, Avengers Age of Ultron, and Captain America Civil War. Continuing on with our Tony Stark arc, the 9 films of Tony Stark for nice. Do you need more stubs? Is that what you're saying, Nobody's baby? Because, we can hand out stubs. We like handing out stubs. It's fun. Anyway, those are the 3 films we're going to discuss next week, leading up, of course, until we can get to Homecoming and the 2 Avengers final films. And we'll have fun from there. But otherwise, what the heck just happened to my computer? All right, that was weird. Well, maybe I can't do this. So.
See if I can.
Yeah, raid Wheezy Breezy, WHEEZIE, Breezy, capital BREEEZY.
I'm having issues. Hold on a second.
Yeah, I literally lost my chat bar.
Oh, that's why. Okay. Okay, hold on. Give it to me again.
Yeah, it's capital
W.
capital W Heezie, Wheezy, and this is all one word. And then capital B Reeezy. That's 3 E's.
Oh, I don't have permission. You have me as an editor.
Go figure. I'll do it. I got this. Watch this. Watch this. Boom. Done and done. It's going. Whoa, what happened to my chat? Dude, my computer is wigging out. Anyway, you guys have a great evening. This will either happen or it won't, apparently. This is ridiculous. Here we go.
Oh, it's coming. It's starting.
There it goes. Okay.
Do a
Have a
thing.
great night, guys. Bye.
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 Did it happen?
It happened.
So.